Losing a soulmate is a heartbreak I wouldn't wish on anyone, not even those I least admire. My name is Amy, and the sadness of losing my husband came just 3 years after our wedding vows. Our life together was blissful. I had left my job because I had a high-risk pregnancy and was eager to welcome our baby girl. However, destiny had cruel plans. My husband was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and he bravely fought for 4 months before passing away. During his illness, we moved in with my in-laws, Carol and William. They supported us as best as they could. I was grateful they provided us shelter when we couldn't afford our own place anymore. After my husband died, I hoped for continued emotional support from them, but I was sadly mistaken. The warmth they once showed turned cold right after the funeral. Carol and William started treating me and my unborn child as burdens. I told them I planned to find a job and help financially, but they didn't care. Money wasn't a problem since my sister-in-law Angela, who had a good job, was covering all the expenses. Still, my in-laws remained distant, saying I wasn't welcome and didn't deserve their help. William bluntly told me that to them, my connection with their family ended with their son's death. Desperate, I begged them to let me stay a few more days, especially because of my risky pregnancy. My father-in-law shockingly suggested abortion as a solution, and Carol didn't object. Their hostility reached a peak when they tricked me into going to an abortion clinic, pretending it was a health checkup. Realizing what was happening, I protested and left. Returning to their house was difficult, but I realized I needed to find a new path for myself and my unborn daughter, away from the toxic environment my in-laws had created. Overwhelmed with grief and shock, I was devastated by their insistence on terminating my pregnancy. When they returned, they were furious and demanded I get an abortion. They said they had no intention of supporting me or my unborn child now that their son was gone. I tried to remind them that the baby was their grandchild, but they ignored me. Their ultimatum was harsh: either leave or get an abortion. The reality of their rejection hit me hard, especially so soon after my husband's death. Carol forcefully escorted me out, ignoring my protests and the danger it posed to my pregnancy. Outnumbered and worried for my baby's safety, I had no choice but to leave. Standing on their porch, I was in despair, realizing I had nowhere to go and no financial support. I reminded them of the sacrifices I had made, believing we were family, but they didn't care. They denied any family connection to me or the baby, saying they didn't want a granddaughter and accused me of trying to manipulate them with the baby's existence. Their cruel words suggested that without their support, our survival didn't matter to them. These were among the last heartless words they said before shutting the door, leaving me isolated without even basic necessities or important documents. In that moment, I faced the harsh reality of their complete rejection and indifference towards me and their grandchild. Sitting on the porch, enveloped in despair, I felt utterly shattered and powerless. After crying uncontrollably for about 30 minutes, Carol and William confronted me again, demanding to know why I was still there and insisting I leave their property immediately. They threatened to call the police if I didn't leave, which was the final push I needed to understand they were serious. Fearful for my safety and that of my unborn child, and knowing I had no legal standing since my name wasn't on the lease, I gathered my strength and began to walk away, tears streaming down my face. I walked a few blocks, feeling lost and overwhelmed. I decided to call Angela, holding on to a sliver of hope that she might offer me some support. As soon as she answered, my emotions, amplified by pregnancy hormones, burst forth uncontrollably. Somehow, through my sobs, I managed to tell her where I was but couldn't say much more. Angela, alarmed by my distress, quickly came to pick me up. Angela's home became a safe haven for me. She gently comforted me, reminding me to try and control my tears for the baby's sake. She didn't ask for details, but focused on helping me feel better, even preparing food and a smoothie to calm me down. Once I was somewhat calmer, Angela, with a serious tone, urged me to tell her what had happened. Her assurance of support, no matter what, was comforting to me. I hesitated, knowing that her parents were involved in my problems might change things between us. "Angela, something significant happened. It's about your parents," I managed to say, bracing for her reaction. Angela's response was a moment of silence, a pause that felt like an eternity as she processed what I said. Her promise to support me, especially knowing I carried her niece, was strong. But the news that her parents were at the heart of my despair tested that promise. As I hesitantly revealed her parents' involvement in my troubles, I feared Angela might be upset with me for accusing them. But her reaction, after a brief pause, was one of concern and openness. She assured me in a gentle tone that my fears of offending her were unfounded and encouraged me to share my ordeal. When I confessed that her parents had not only kicked me out, but also tried to force me into having an abortion, her shock was clear. The revelation seemed almost unbelievable to her, a stark contrast to the image she had of her family. Angela's confusion deepened as I detailed how her parents had even taken me to a clinic to try and make me have an abortion. This plan was stopped only by the understanding staff at the clinic. I could see the turmoil of shock and disbelief in her eyes as she processed my words, struggling to reconcile them with the parents she knew. Her disbelief turned to horror as I explained their motive: fear of financial and caregiving responsibilities for me and my child. Despite my assurances of independence and my plans to find work, they remained unmoved. Angela's astonishment grew as I disclosed the financial deceit over my husband's supposed medical bills, a lie that stripped me of the last of my resources. Angela was adamant that no such debts existed. She had personally taken care of her brother's expenses to ensure her parents weren't financially burdened. Realizing that her parents had tricked me into giving up the little money left by my late husband hit me hard, bringing back my tears. It was a cruel lesson in their greed and callousness, exploiting my vulnerability for their gain. Angela's silence showed her shock and dismay at her parents' actions that betrayed not just me, but the memory of their son. After giving me space to express my grief, Angela's response was full of empathy and apology. Although she struggled to grasp the full extent of their betrayal, her support at that moment was a small light in the overwhelming darkness of my situation. I said to her, "I haven't had the chance to tell you about the financial aspect of things, Angela," to which she replied, "Please, you don't need to apologize." I told Angela, overwhelmed by her generosity, "You've already done so much by covering the medical expenses. Without your help, I would have been buried in debt." Angela's actions were the perfect example of family support, a stark contrast to her parents' selfishness. She admitted that she always knew her parents prioritized their own desires, but never imagined they would go so far as to deny me a temporary home until I could support myself. Angela's disbelief turned into determination as she insisted that I wasn't alone and promised that her parents' actions wouldn't go unchallenged. She decided to confront them directly over the phone because she needed to hear their justification firsthand. Not because she doubted my story, but because she wanted to understand their reasoning. During the call, Angela's straightforward questioning about why they threw me out revealed their true nature. Their defense was weak. They claimed they had no intention of causing harm, yet they couldn't explain why they insisted on such a drastic action against their grandchild. Angela's anger was clear as she demanded an explanation. Her parents' attempts to justify their actions only deepened the wound. Listening to them try to rationalize what they did was heartbreaking. Even when faced with their daughter's outrage, William and Carol stuck to their excuses, insisting on their right to a carefree retirement undisturbed by the needs of their late son's family. They claimed they had done enough by caring for their son in his final months, viewing their sacrifices as sufficient reason to avoid any further responsibility. Their words painted a clear picture. In their eyes, their comfort in retirement was more important than the needs of their grandchild and me. This chilling revelation underscored their willingness to abandon their family for the sake of their own ease, a stance that Angela strongly opposed. Her loyalty and support offered a glimmer of hope amidst the bleakness of their rejection. Hearing Carol and William's words was like a blow to my already fragile state. They were adamant about persuading Angela to abandon me, portraying me as a burden who would exploit her kindness. Their harsh advice to Angela, to leave me to fend for myself on the streets, suggesting it would bring me to my senses, was unbelievably cruel. Their words plunged me into despair, fearing for my future and that of my unborn child. But just as I felt the weight of hopelessness, Angela's response ignited a spark of hope. She challenged her parents with fierce protectiveness, questioning their humanity and the values they claimed to uphold. Angela reminded them of the financial support she had provided, which allowed them to retire comfortably, highlighting the irony in their claim of hard work. Her anger showed her disbelief in their actions and intentions. Carol and William tried to justify their stance by framing it as a financial safeguard for Angela, even suggesting they'd lie to cover up their demand to kick me out. Angela met this with unwavering refusal. She declared she would not mimic their heartlessness, expressing her shock and disgust at their lack of empathy and familial duty. Angela's defense of me and her outright rejection of her parents' manipulative tactics revealed her strong character and the genuine bond she felt with me, akin to that of a sister. Her fierce response to their demands, and her readiness to stand against them showed her strength and resolve to protect what she believed was right, regardless of the personal cost. Her parents' attempts to impose their will were met with Angela's firm refusal to conform to their heartless demands, challenging their motives and ethics. Angela's stance not only defended me, but also upheld the memory of her brother, reflecting her deep love for him and respect for the family ties her parents were so quick to dismiss. Her courage and integrity in the face of such family adversity were a beacon of hope in what felt like an endless night. Angela's bold declaration that she would cease her financial support was a significant turning point, leaving William and Carol shocked. They had never anticipated that Angela would take such a drastic step in my defense. Even I was surprised by Angela's determination to stand up for me so firmly. William and Carol were in disbelief, unable to grasp the reality that Angela was serious about redirecting her support from them to me and my unborn child. Their reaction to Angela's stance was a mixture of confusion and denial, questioning if she really intended to cut them off financially over what they dismissively called a stupid woman. Angela's resolve was unshakable. She corrected them, emphasizing my importance and her commitment to support me and her future niece instead of funding the comfortable lifestyle of her parents, who were more than capable of managing on their own. Her declaration marked an end to their exploitation of her generosity, signaling a new priority: my well-being and that of my baby. This stance by Angela left William and Carol scrambling, their earlier confidence dissolving into panic as they faced the real possibility of having to fend for themselves financially. They attempted to backtrack quickly from their initial demand for my departure to a sudden willingness to welcome me back, which was a clear sign of their desperation. They even went so far as to retract their insistence on abortion, suggesting a newfound readiness to figure things out. Angela then passed the decision to me, her smile signaling a power shift. It was my moment to address the situation, to highlight their wrongful actions and seek accountability. Calmly, I voiced my doubts about their sincerity, pointing out their egregious behavior and the lack of a genuine apology. Confronted with this, William and Carol hastily offered their apologies, a stark contrast to their previous stance. They expressed regret for their actions and extended an invitation for me to return, promising to make amends. This sudden change of heart was a testament to Angela's influence and the realization that their financial stability was at stake. The situation underscored the power of standing united against unfairness and manipulation, shifting the dynamics in a way that demanded respect and acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Struggling with mixed feelings, I confronted William and Carol about the deceitful way they had manipulated me out of my late husband's money, despite Angela covering all the bills. Their scheme had unraveled, revealing their dishonesty and exploitation at a time when I was most vulnerable. Seizing the moment, I demanded the return of the money they had unjustly taken, emphasizing that they had no right to it given their lack of support during my husband's illness. Reluctantly and likely feeling cornered, William and Carol quickly refunded the money through PayPal. Then, they reached out to Angela, suggesting a return to normalcy, as if a financial repayment could erase their wrongdoings. They even proposed setting up a nursery, attempting to lure me back with promises and pretenses of family unity. However, their assumption that a simple apology and refund would mend fences was misplaced. Their expectation of forgiveness, despite their initial willingness to disown me and my unborn child, was a testament to their entitlement. They seemed to believe these gestures were sufficient for reconciliation, overlooking the depth of the hurt they had caused. Firmly, I rejected their notion of family and forgiveness. Their actions, particularly their attempt to coerce me into an abortion, were unforgivable. The audacity to suggest that my daughter would want them in her life after they had so clearly rejected her was appalling. I made it clear that my child did not need such grandparents, emphasizing that their initial rejection and subsequent superficial apologies could not undo the harm they had inflicted. Angela stood by me, reiterating my lack of forgiveness and reaffirming her decision to withdraw her financial support from them. This decision was not taken lightly, but was a direct consequence of their actions and their failure to truly acknowledge the gravity of their wrongdoing. William and Carol's reaction to this finality was one of desperation. Their pleas for us to reconsider, driven by the sudden reality of facing financial responsibilities without Angela's support, were pitiful. Their earlier confidence evaporated, leaving them to reckon with the consequences of their actions, a fitting end to their manipulative attempts to control and discard us according to their whims. Watching William and Carol face the consequences of their actions was both tough and satisfying. They tried to make us feel guilty, but it didn't work. Angela decided enough was enough. She was going to collect my things and then cut ties with them. She even said she'd bring the police to make sure they couldn't keep any of my stuff. True to her word, Angela arrived with a police officer who turned out to be her boyfriend, a surprise to us all. Despite their pleas, I had moved on and blocked them. Angela didn't stop there. She told her whole extended family about what had happened. They were appalled by William and Carol's behavior and rallied around me instead. In the time leading up to my daughter's birth, I was wrapped in a cocoon of love and support. I landed a job through a friend, set to start once daycare was sorted for my little one. For now, I'm staying with Angela, who's been encouraging me to save up for a house to secure our future. Her boyfriend has been an incredible support system. I managed to get a restraining order against William and Carol, thanks to statements from the abortion clinic, ensuring they stayed away from my child and me. My baby girl is healthy and blessed with her father's dark eyes. Seeing them for the first time brought tears to my eyes, and Angela has been my rock through this, choosing to sever ties with her parents permanently. Life took a turn for William and Carol. They've downsized to a small apartment and had to return to work because of financial strain. It seems karma has come full circle, placing them in the very situation they wished upon me.
Maria, you're the only one who can save her. My father's words hit me like a freight train as I sat in their living room, staring at my sister Christine sobbing into our mother's shoulder. The fertility specialist had just delivered the final blow. Christine would never carry a child. After 3 years of treatments, surgeries and hope, it was over. My name is Maria, and I've spent 28 years being the backup daughter. The one who got decent grades while Christine got perfect ones. The one who had nice boyfriends while Christine married her college sweetheart. The one who worked steady jobs while Christine built her dream career. I was always fine, always okay, always there. I can't ask that of her, Christine whispered, but her eyes found mine across the room. Those same blue eyes that had always gotten her everything she wanted. Of course you can, Mom said, stroking Christine's hair. Maria would do anything for family, wouldn't you, sweetheart? The room went silent. Dad leaned forward in his chair, his expression serious. Christine's husband, Cage, shifted uncomfortably on the couch. Everyone was looking at me like I held the key to Christine's happiness, and maybe I did. What exactly are you asking? I said, though I already knew. Surrogacy, Dad said bluntly. You carry a baby for Christine and Cade, their embryo, your body. Christine sat up straighter. I know it's huge, Maria. I know it's asking everything of you, but you're my sister. You're the only person I'd trust with something this precious. Trust. When was the last time Christine had trusted me with anything? When we were kids, maybe, before she realised I was competition for our parents' attention. Before she learned she didn't need to worry about that. Think about it, Mom added. You'd be giving Christine the greatest gift imaginable. You'd be a hero. A hero. I'd never been anyone's hero before. I need time to think, I said. Of course, Christine said quickly. Take all the time you need, but Maria... She reached across the coffee table and grabbed my hand. This would mean everything to me. Everything. I drove home to my tiny apartment in a daze. My phone buzzed with texts from my best friend Trinity, asking how dinner with the family went. I couldn't even begin to explain. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about Christine's face, the desperation, the hope, the way Mom and Dad had looked at me like I actually mattered for once. Growing up, I'd learned early that love in our family was conditional. Christine got praise for her A's, while my B's were met with, you could do better. Christine's achievements were celebrated with family dinners, while mine were acknowledged with a pat on the head. When Christine got married, it was the wedding of the century. When I brought boyfriends home, Dad barely looked up from his newspaper. I wasn't bitter about it, or at least I told myself I wasn't. It was just how things were. Christine was special. I was ordinary. She was the star. I was the supporting cast, but now they needed me. For the first time in my life, I was the only one who could give them what they wanted. My phone rang. Christine. I'm sorry for ambushing you tonight, she said. I know it's a lot to process. It is. I keep thinking about when we were little. Remember how you used to say you'd do anything to help me? When I was scared of the dark, you'd sleep in my room. When I broke Mom's vase, you took the blame. I remembered. I also remembered how she'd stopped needing my help the moment she realised she could get everything she wanted without it. This is different, Christine. I know, but Maria, I'm desperate. Cade and I have been trying for so long. This is our last chance. Our only chance. Her voice cracked and I felt that familiar tug in my chest. The need to fix things, to make everyone happy, to finally be the daughter who saved the day. If I did this, I said slowly, things would be different. Between us, between me and Mum and Dad, everything would be different, she promised. You'd be part of this baby's life forever. You'd be the aunt who made it all possible. We'd never forget what you did for us. After I hung up, I sat in the dark for hours. I thought about the empty nursery in my parents' house that they prepared for grandchildren who never came. I thought about Christine's tears. I thought about finally being the daughter who mattered. By morning, I'd made my decision. I was going to save my sister. I was going to be the hero. I had no idea I was walking into the biggest betrayal of my life. "Maria, there she is!" Mum's voice rang across the restaurant as I walked in for our family dinner. She actually stood up and hugged me, a real hug, not the usual quick pat on the shoulder. It had been 6 weeks since I'd agreed to be Christine's surrogate, and the pregnancy test had come back positive 3 days ago. Suddenly, I was the most important person in the room. "How are you feeling? Any morning sickness? Are you eating enough?" Mom fired off questions while guiding me to the chair they'd saved. The good chair. The one with the cushion that Christine usually claimed. "I'm fine, Mom. Just a little tired." "That's completely normal," Christine said, beaming. She looked radiant, like she was the one carrying the baby. "I've been reading everything about first trimester symptoms. We need to make sure you're getting enough folic acid. I noticed you've been saying that a lot lately." Dad raised his wine glass to Maria, our family's guardian angel. Guardian angel? I felt my cheeks flush as everyone toasted. Cade smiled at me across the table, his eyes grateful. Even Christine's usual competitive edge seemed softer. "I have something for you," Christine said, sliding an envelope across the table. "I wrote this last night." Inside was a card with a photo of a sunset. Christine's handwriting covered the inside. "Maria, I don't have words for what you're doing for us. You're giving me the one thing I want most in the world. This baby will know that Aunt Maria is the reason they exist. You're not just carrying our child. You're carrying our dreams, our future, our everything. I love you more than I can say. Forever grateful, Christine." "Christine," I felt tears prick my eyes. "Don't cry. You'll make me cry," she laughed, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "I mean every word. The next few months were like living in a different family. Mum called me daily to check on the baby. Dad actually asked about my job, my life, my thoughts on things. Christine and I had lunch every week, shopping for maternity clothes and talking about nursery themes. "We're thinking of the room at Mom and Dad's," Christine said over salad one afternoon. "The one with the big windows facing the garden. Perfect for a nursery." "That's my old room," I said. "Was your old room? You don't live there anymore, and it's perfect for the baby. Mom's already started clearing it out." I felt a small pang, but pushed it away. This was about the baby, not me. "Plus," Christine continued, "you'll practically be living there anyway during your maternity leave. Mum insists on taking care of you both." Both? The baby and me. Like we were a package deal. The attention was intoxicating. For the first time in my life, I was the centre of our family's universe. Mum brought me homemade soup when I had morning sickness. Dad installed a handrail in my apartment bathroom without being asked. Christine sent me daily texts checking on our little miracle. At my 12-week appointment, Christine and Cade came with me. We all cried when we heard the heartbeat. The technician printed extra copies of the ultrasound, one for each of us. "Look at that perfect little profile," Christine whispered, staring at the grainy image. "Our baby." "Your baby," I corrected gently. "Our baby," she repeated firmly. "This is a family effort." After the appointment, we went to lunch to celebrate. Christine pulled out her phone and started showing me Pinterest boards she'd created. "I've been thinking about names. What do you think of Oliver for a boy? Or maybe James? Those are nice. And for a girl, I love Emma. Or possibly Sarah, after Cade's grandmother." Cade nodded along, but I noticed he kept glancing at me like he wanted to say something. "What about you, Maria?" he asked finally. "Any names you like?" Christine's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Well, it's really our decision, isn't it? I mean, Maria's doing the physical work, but we're the parents." "Of course," I said quickly. "I was just curious about your thoughts." The moment passed, but something felt different. A tiny crack in the perfect picture we'd been painting. That night, Christine called me. "I hope you didn't feel left out today. About the names, I mean." "Not at all." "Good. Because, Maria, I need you to know how much this means to me, to us. You're making our family complete." After we hung up, I lay in bed with my hand on my barely visible bump. For 4 months I'd been the hero of this story, the beloved daughter, the cherished sister. I should have known it was too good to last. My phone buzzed with a text from Christine. "Can't wait to bring our baby home to the nursery. It's going to be perfect." Our baby, our nursery, our family. I was starting to wonder where exactly I fit in that equation. The first sign something was wrong came at 18 weeks. Christine had been dodging my calls for 3 days. "She's just busy with work," Mum said when I finally called her. "You know how demanding her job is." But Christine had never been too busy to check on the baby before. She'd been texting me daily, sometimes hourly, asking about symptoms and cravings and doctor appointments. I drove to her house that Saturday morning. Cade's car wasn't in the driveway, which was weird for a weekend. I knocked on the door. "Maria." Christine opened it, wearing a silk robe at noon, her hair messy. "What are you doing here?" "You haven't been answering my calls. I wanted to make sure everything was okay." "Everything's fine. I'm just going through some things right now." Behind her, I heard a male voice call out, "Chris, who's at the door?" Christine's face went white. The voice definitely wasn't Cade's. "Is that?" I started. "Look, this isn't a good time," Christine said quickly, trying to close the door. "Christine, what's going on? Where's Cade?" She sighed and opened the door wider. A guy I'd never seen before walked up behind her, shirtless, clearly comfortable in her house. "This is Sean," Christine said. "Sean, this is my sister Maria." Sean looked at my obvious pregnancy bump and grinned. "Oh, the surrogate. Nice to meet you." The surrogate. Not Christine's sister, not Maria. The surrogate. "Where's Cade?" I asked again. "We're separated," Christine said flatly. "I moved out last week." "Separated?" "Christine, you're about to have a baby." "We're about to have a baby," Sean corrected, wrapping his arm around Christine's waist. "Can't wait to be a dad." I stared at them. "What?" "Sean and I are together now," Christine said. "Cade and I. It wasn't working. We grew apart." "You grew apart while I'm carrying your baby?" "It's complicated, Maria." "No, it's not complicated. You're married. You have a baby coming." "Look," Sean said, "these things happen. Christine deserves to be happy, right? And I'm going to be an amazing father to this kid." "You're not the father," I said. "Biology doesn't make a father," he replied smoothly. "Love does." "And I love Christine and this baby already." I felt dizzy. "I need to sit down." "Maybe you should go home," Christine said. "I'll call you later when we can talk properly." "Talk properly?" "Christine, what about Cade? What about our agreement?" "Our agreement was about giving me a baby. That hasn't changed." "Everything has changed." Christine's expression hardened. "Maria, I know this is a shock, but my personal life is my business. What matters is the baby." I drove straight to Mum and Dad's house. They had to know about this. They had to help me figure out what this meant. "Oh, honey," Mom said when I told her. "We know. Christine called us yesterday." "You know? And you're okay with this?" "We want Christine to be happy," Dad said. "If Cade wasn't making her happy." "But what about the baby? What about their marriage?" "Christine is an adult," Mom said. "She can make her own choices." "What about my choices?" I agreed to carry a baby for Christine and Cade, not Christine and some random guy. "The baby is still Christine's baby," Dad said. "That hasn't changed." I spent the next week trying to process everything. Cade called me devastated. "She just left," he said, his voice broken. "Packed her things while I was at work and moved in with him. I don't even know how long it's been going on." "What does this mean for the baby?" "I don't know. My lawyer says it's complicated. The baby is biologically mine, but if Christine doesn't want to be married to me..." "This is insane. Maria, I'm sorry. I know this isn't what you signed up for." At least someone understood that. When I went to my parents' house the following weekend, I got the biggest shock yet. The nursery, my old room, was completely different. The crib was gone. The changing table was gone. Instead, there was a king-size bed and men's clothes scattered around. "Mum?" I called out. She appeared in the doorway looking guilty. "Oh, Maria, I was going to call you. What happened to the nursery?" "Well, Christine and Sean needed a place to stay while they looked for their own place, and since you're not living here anymore..." "But what about the baby? Where is the baby going to sleep?" "They'll figure something out. Maybe the guest room." I stood there staring at the bed where my baby's crib was supposed to be, where Christine's new boyfriend's clothes were thrown on the dresser I'd picked out for baby clothes. "I can't believe this." "Maria, be reasonable. Christine needs our support right now. She's going through a difficult transition." "I'm the one who's pregnant. I'm the one carrying this baby." "And we appreciate that, sweetheart. But Christine is our daughter too, and she needs us." I walked downstairs in a daze. Dad was in the kitchen making coffee. Dad, did you know they gave away the nursery? He didn't look up. Christine needs a place to stay. What about the baby? The baby will be fine. Christine will work it out. I heard voices from the living room, Mum talking to someone on the phone. I know it's complicated, Mum was saying, but Maria needs to understand her role here. She's just the incubator. Christine is the mother. Just the incubator. I stood frozen in the hallway, my hand on my growing belly. Just the incubator. I left my parents' house that day and didn't go back. Everyone expected me to fall apart, to beg for forgiveness, to accept whatever scraps they threw my way. Instead, I went home and started taking screenshots. Every text message, every voicemail, every email about the surrogacy arrangement. I saved them all in a folder on my phone labelled Evidence. Trinity came over that night with ice cream and wine. Well, ice cream for me. I can't believe they said that, she said, after I told her about the incubator comment. Your own mother. I recorded it, I said, showing her my phone. I started recording our conversations after Christine left Cade. I had a feeling things were going to get worse. Smart. What are you going to do? I'm going to call a lawyer. Trinity nearly choked on her wine. Seriously. Dead serious. I looked up the surrogacy agreement Christine and I signed. There are clauses about both intended parents being present and committed to the arrangement. Cade's out of the picture now, and Sean was never part of the original agreement. But Christine's still the biological mother, right? Actually, no. I'm the biological mother. They used my egg and Cade's sperm because Christine's eggs weren't viable. The agreement was that I'd give up parental rights to both of them after birth. Trinity's eyes widened. Both of them. But if Cade's not in the picture anymore, then the agreement is void. I called 3 law firms the next morning. The first 2 said they didn't handle surrogacy cases. The third one, Dixon and Associates, agreed to see me that afternoon. Ethan Dixon was nothing like I expected. Mid-40s, calm, wearing a simple grey suit. He listened to my story without interrupting, occasionally taking notes. Do you have the original surrogacy agreement? He asked. I handed him the folder I'd prepared. Everything's in there. The original contract, text messages, recorded conversations, photos of the nursery before and after. He flipped through the documents, his expression unreadable. Maria, I need to ask you something important. What do you want out of this? Do you want to keep the baby, or do you want compensation for the breach of contract? I want to keep the baby. Are you prepared to be a single mother? I'm already doing this alone. At least now it would be my choice. He leaned back in his chair. Your family breached the surrogacy agreement in multiple ways. The intended father is no longer part of the arrangement. The intended mother has introduced a third party who was never vetted or approved. They've failed to provide the promised support and housing arrangements. So what does that mean? It means you have full parental rights to this child. The surrogacy agreement is null and void. I felt something shift inside my chest. They can't take the baby. They have no legal claim to this child. You're the biological mother, and the agreement they violated was the only thing that would have transferred your parental rights. What about Cade? It's his sperm. Cade would have rights if he wanted to pursue them, but given that his marriage to Christine is over, and he's not part of the current situation, that's unlikely. Most men don't fight for custody of a child their ex-wife's new boyfriend wants to raise. I walked out of that office feeling like a different person. For the first time in months, I had power. My phone started buzzing immediately. Christine. Maria, Mum said you left upset yesterday. We need to talk. Yes, we do. Great. Can you come over? Sean's making dinner and we want to discuss the birth plan. Actually, I think we should meet somewhere neutral. How about that coffee shop on 5th Street? Why can't you just come here? Because I said so. There was a pause. Christine wasn't used to me asserting myself. Fine. Tomorrow at 2. That night, Dad called. Maria, your mother is very upset about yesterday. You need to apologise. For what? For being dramatic. For making this situation harder than it needs to be. Dad, they gave away the baby's nursery to Christine's boyfriend. That's temporary. They'll work something out. No, they won't. Because I'm keeping the baby. Silence. What did you say? I said I'm keeping the baby. I saw a lawyer today. The surrogacy agreement is void. You can't do that. Actually, I can. And I am. Maria, don't be ridiculous. You can't raise a child alone. Watch me. I hung up and immediately got a text from Mum. Call me right now. We need to talk about this nonsense. Then Christine. Dad told me what you said. Very funny. Call me. Then Sean. Hey Maria, heard you're having some kind of breakdown. Christine's worried about stress affecting the baby. Maybe you should see someone. I screenshot every message and sent them to Ethan. His response came back in minutes. Perfect. Keep documenting everything. See you tomorrow to go over strategy. I put my phone on silent and went to bed with my hand on my belly. It's just you and me now, I whispered. For the first time since this whole thing started, that felt like enough. The coffee shop meeting was a disaster from the start. Christine walked in with Sean, both of them looking like they were about to stage an intervention. She'd clearly been crying. Maria, what is this about? Christine sat down across from me, her hands shaking. Dad said you're talking about keeping the baby. That's not funny. I'm not joking. Sean leaned forward. Look, I get that you're upset about the changes, but let's be adults here. This baby was always meant to be ours. Ours? You weren't even in the picture 6 months ago. I'm in the picture now. And I'm going to be this kid's father. No, you're not. Christine's voice cracked. Maria, please. This baby is everything to me. You know that. Then you shouldn't have blown up your marriage and moved your boyfriend into the nursery. That's not fair. My relationship with Cade was over long before. Before what? Before you decided to screw around while I was carrying your baby. Sean's jaw tightened. Watch how you talk to her. Or what? Maria, Christine said quickly, I know you're hurt. But think about what you're saying. You can't raise a child alone. You don't have the resources, the support system. I have more support than you think. What does that mean? I pulled out my phone and showed them a photo I'd taken the day before. Christine and Sean's belongings, scattered around what used to be the nursery. I have documentation of everything. The broken promises, the changed arrangements, the fact that you moved a stranger into the space meant for this baby. Christine went pale. You're documenting us. I'm protecting myself. And my baby. Your baby, Sean laughed. Lady, you're a surrogate. That's not your baby. Actually, it is. I spoke with a lawyer. Your girlfriend breached our agreement in multiple ways. The contract is void. The silence stretched for a full minute. You're bluffing, Christine said finally. Am I? Want to test that theory? Christine started crying again. Maria, please, I'm begging you. This baby is the only thing I have left. You have Sean. That's not the same thing. You know how much I want to be a mother. Then you should have thought about that before you destroyed your marriage. I left them sitting there and drove to my next prenatal appointment. Dr. Martinez had been my OB throughout the pregnancy, and she'd watched the family dynamics play out in her office. How are you feeling, Maria? She asked as she measured my belly. Honestly, better than I have in months. Good. Your blood pressure was concerning at the last visit, but it's much better today. I've been less stressed lately. She nodded knowingly. Sometimes removing toxic situations from our lives has immediate health benefits. After the appointment, I stopped by the hospital to pre-register for delivery. The nurse, Kayla, was incredibly kind. Is this your first baby? She asked. Yes. Are you excited? Terrified, but excited. That's normal. Do you have support? Family coming for the birth? It's complicated. It might just be me. Kayla squeezed my hand. That's okay too. We'll take good care of you both. That evening my phone exploded with messages. Mom. Maria. Christine is devastated. How could you do this to your own sister? Dad. This is selfish and cruel. That baby belongs with Christine. Christine. I can't believe you're doing this to me, after everything I've been through. Sean. You're going to regret this. We're not going away. But there was one message that surprised me from Cade. Maria, I heard what happened. I'm sorry my marriage falling apart has caused you so much pain. If you need anything, please call me. I called him back. Cade, I'm sorry about everything. Don't apologise. None of this is your fault. I should have seen the signs that Christine was checking out of our marriage. What are you going to do? About the baby, I mean. Honestly? I think you keeping the baby is probably the best outcome for everyone. Christine's not in a place to be a mother right now, and I can't co-parent with someone who left me for another man. So you're okay with this? I'm heartbroken about my marriage, but yes, if you want to raise this baby, you have my support. Thank you. Maria, for what it's worth, I think you're going to be a great mother. Meanwhile, Christine was posting on social media like nothing had changed. Photos of baby clothes with captions like, "Can't wait to meet our little one," and "Counting down the weeks until our family is complete." I screenshot every post and sent them to Ethan. His response: "She's building a public narrative that the baby is hers. This actually helps our case. Keep documenting." At 34 weeks, I got a call from Mum. "We're planning to be at the hospital when you deliver. Christine wants to be in the room." "That's not happening." "Maria, be reasonable. She's the mother." "No, I'm the mother. And I decide who's in that room." "You're being ridiculous. We're coming whether you like it or not." "Then you'll be waiting in the parking lot." I hung up and immediately called Ethan. "They're planning to show up at the hospital and take over," I told him. "Let them come. I'll be ready." "What do you mean?" "Maria, it's time to end this. When you go into labour, call me immediately. We're going to serve them with papers right there in the hospital." "Is that legal?" "Perfectly legal. And very effective." 2 weeks later, my water broke at 3 a.m. I called Trinity first, then Ethan, then the hospital. I didn't call my family, but somehow they found out anyway. Trinity drove me to the hospital at 4 a.m, my contractions coming every 5 minutes. I was focused on breathing through the pain when my phone started buzzing. Christine. "Mom called. We're on our way. So excited to finally meet our baby." "How did they find out?" Trinity asked, seeing my face. "I have no idea. I only called you and Ethan. Hospital staff maybe. Someone who knows your family." Another text from Mum. "We'll be there in an hour. Dad's bringing the car seat." I showed Trinity the message. They're bringing a car seat. Jesus. They really think they're taking this baby home. Kayla, the nurse I'd met during pre-registration, was working the labour and delivery ward that night. She took one look at my face and closed the door to my room. "What's wrong, honey, besides the obvious?" she said, nodding at my belly. "My family's coming. They think they're taking my baby." "Your baby?" "It's complicated. I was supposed to be a surrogate for my sister, but the agreement fell through. Legally, this is my baby now." Kayla's expression hardened. "Do you want them here?" "No." "Then they're not getting in. I'll make sure of that." At 6 a.m, I heard familiar voices in the hallway. Christine's laugh, Sean's loud voice, Dad's authoritative tone giving directions to someone. "They're here," I whispered to Trinity. "It's okay." Kayla said she'd handle it. Through the door, I could hear Kayla talking to them. "I'm sorry, but the patient has requested no visitors at this time." "We're not visitors," Dad's voice boomed. "We're family. That's our grandchild being born." "I understand, but the patient's wishes take priority." "This is ridiculous," Christine said. "I'm the baby's mother. I have a right to be here. Mom, according to our records, Maria is listed as the mother. If you'd like to dispute that, you'll need to speak with hospital administration." "There's been a mistake," Sean said. "We're the parents. We have a nursery set up. We bought all the baby gear." "Sir, I'm going to need you to lower your voice. This is a hospital." My contractions were getting stronger. Trinity held my hand while I breathed through them. "Should I call Ethan?" she asked. "Not yet. Let's see how bad this gets first." At 8 a.m, it got bad. I was in active labour when my door burst open. Christine rushed in, followed by Mom, Dad, and Sean. Kayla was right behind them, looking furious. "I'm sorry, Maria. They pushed past me when I was helping another patient." "Oh my God! You're really in labour!" Christine rushed to my bedside. "How are you feeling? Is the baby okay?" "Get out!" I said, through gritted teeth. "Sweetheart, we're here to support you," Mom said, settling into a chair like she planned to stay. "This is such an exciting day for our family." "Our family?" Sean echoed, pulling out his phone to take pictures. "I can't wait to post about this." "Stop taking pictures of me." "But this is the birth of our son," Christine said. "We want to document everything." "Your son?" "Well, yes. I mean, you're doing the physical work, but he's ours." Dad was already on his phone. "I'm calling everyone. Aunt Ruth, Uncle Mike, the Johnsons." "Dad, stop! This is the biggest day of our lives, Maria. Our first grandchild." Another contraction hit, stronger than before. I squeezed Trinity's hand and tried to focus on breathing. You need to leave, Trinity said firmly. She's in labour. She needs space. We're not leaving, Mum said. We've been waiting for this moment for months. Actually, we've been waiting years, Christine added. Ever since I found out I couldn't have children naturally. Kayla stepped forward. I'm going to have to ask you all to step outside. The patient needs... We're not going anywhere, Sean interrupted. This is our baby being born. Sir, if you don't leave voluntarily, I'll call security. Call them, Dad said. We have every right to be here. That's when I made the call. Trinity, call Ethan. Now. Maria, who's Ethan? Christine asked. My lawyer. The room went dead silent except for the sound of the fetal monitor. Your lawyer? Mum's voice was barely a whisper. Why do you need a lawyer? Dad demanded. Another contraction hit. When it passed, I looked directly at Christine. Because this is my baby, not yours. Mine. That's not true, Christine said, but her voice was shaking. We have an agreement. We had an agreement. You broke it when you left your husband and moved your boyfriend into the baby's nursery. Maria, you're being emotional, Mum said. Labour hormones can make you say things you don't mean. I mean every word. Sean stepped closer to my bed. Look, I get that you're in pain, but let's not do anything stupid here. This baby belongs with us. We're prepared. We have everything ready. Get away from me. Sean, maybe we should... Christine started. No, he said firmly. We're not backing down. This is our kid. Trinity hung up her phone. Ethan's on his way. He said don't sign anything and don't let them take the baby. Take the baby? Christine's voice cracked. Maria, what have you done? Before I could answer, another contraction hit. This one so strong I couldn't speak. When it passed, I looked around the room at their faces, confused, angry, desperate. I protected myself, I said, and my son. 2 hours later, I was holding my son. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, perfect in every way. The room had gone quiet except for his soft cries and the beeping of monitors. He's beautiful, Christine whispered, tears streaming down her face. Can I hold him? No. Maria, please, just for a minute. I said no. Mum stepped forward. Sweetheart, you're exhausted. Let Christine help. Nobody touches my baby except me and the medical staff. Kayla had been amazing throughout the delivery, running interference with my family while helping me through labour. Now she stood protectively near my bed. The baby needs a nurse, she said firmly. Everyone except Maria and her support person needs to leave. We're not leaving, Dad said. That's our grandson. Sir, I'm calling security. Go ahead, Sean said. We're not going anywhere. This is our baby. That's when Ethan walked in. He was exactly what I needed in that moment. Calm, professional, carrying a leather briefcase like he owned the place. He surveyed the crowded room and smiled politely. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ethan, Maria's attorney. Attorney? Mum's voice was barely audible. Yes, I have some documents that need to be served. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of papers. Christine, these are for you. Christine's hands shook as she took the papers. What is this? A cease and desist order regarding your claims to this child, along with a restraining order preventing you from taking any actions related to the baby without Maria's consent. This is insane, Sean said. You can't just... Actually, I can. Ethan handed him another set of papers. These are for you, Sean. Since you've been making public claims about being this child's father, you're also named in the order. I don't understand, Christine said, scanning the documents. We have a surrogacy agreement. You had a surrogacy agreement. You breached it in multiple ways. The contract is null and void. Dad stepped forward. Now listen here. Mr. Gill, I'd be very careful about what you say next. Everything in this room is being recorded. Ethan gestured to a small device on the bedside table. Your daughter has been documenting your family's behaviour for months. Recording us? Mum looked horrified. Every conversation, every text message, every broken promise, including the conversation where you referred to Maria as just the incubator. Mum's face went white. That's taken out of context, Dad said. Is it? Because we also have photos of you giving away the baby's nursery to your daughter's boyfriend, recordings of you threatening Maria, and documentation of your attempts to exclude her from decisions about her own pregnancy. Christine was crying harder now. Maria, please. You can't do this to me. This baby is all I have. You have Sean. That's not the same thing. You know how much I want to be a mother. Then you should have acted like one. Sean moved closer to my bed. Look, we can work this out. We don't need lawyers. Sir, step back from my client. This is bullshit. We've been preparing for this baby for months. We have a nursery, we bought clothes, we told everyone. You told everyone about a baby that was never legally yours, Ethan said calmly, and you moved into a nursery that was meant for this child, displacing the woman carrying him. Maria, please, Christine begged. I'm your sister. We can fix this. I'll leave Sean. I'll go back to Cade. It's too late for that. It's not too late. We're family. Family doesn't treat each other the way you treated me. Dad's face was red with anger. You're being vindictive and cruel. That baby belongs with Christine. This baby belongs with his mother, me. You can't raise a child alone. Watch me. Kayla stepped forward. I need everyone except Maria and Trinity to leave now. The baby needs to eat and Maria needs to rest. We're not leaving without our grandson, Mom said. Ethan pulled out his phone. Hospital security is already on their way. You can leave voluntarily or you can be escorted out. Your choice. This isn't over, Sean said. We'll fight this. You're welcome to try, but I should warn you, Maria has an airtight case and your behaviour today has only strengthened it. Christine looked at me one last time, holding my son. Maria, please, I'm begging you, don't do this. I looked down at my baby, then back at her. You made your choice when you left Cade. When you moved Sean into the nursery, when you called me an incubator, this is mine. You'll regret this, Dad said, as security officers appeared in the doorway. The only thing I regret is not standing up for myself sooner. They were escorted out, Christine's sobs echoing down the hallway. Sean was arguing with the security guards. Mom kept looking back like she couldn't believe what was happening. When the door closed, the room was finally quiet except for my son's soft breathing. You okay? Trinity asked. I looked down at the baby in my arms. Yeah. For the first time in months, I'm okay. Ethan packed up his briefcase. They'll probably try to contact you. Don't respond to anything without running it by me first. What happens now? Now you go home with your son and live your life. They have no legal claim to this child. After he left, Kayla helped me with nursing. You did the right thing, she said quietly. Did I? Christine looked so broken. She broke herself. You just refused to let her break you too. Outside my window, I could see my family in the parking lot, arguing. Christine was leaning against a car, still crying. Sean was pacing, gesturing angrily. Mum and Dad stood apart from them, looking lost. I closed the blinds and focused on my son. It's just you and me now, I whispered to him, and that's enough. 3 days after bringing my son home, I was sitting in my living room feeding him when Trinity knocked on my door. How are you holding up? She asked, settling into the chair across from me. Better than I expected. He's a good baby. And the family circus? I gestured to my phone on the coffee table. 47 missed calls since yesterday. I stopped counting the texts. Have you read any of them? A few. Mom wants to talk this through like adults. Dad says I'm destroying the family. Christine sent me a 5-page text about how I'm ruining her life. And Sean? He's been posting on social media about how I stole his son. Ethan says it's actually helping our case because it proves he has no legal standing. Trinity picked up my laptop from the side table. Speaking of social media, have you seen Christine's Facebook? No, why? She turned the screen toward me. Christine had posted a long status update with the heading, Betrayed by Family. I can't believe I'm writing this, but I need to share what's happening. My sister agreed to be a surrogate for me and my husband, but now she's decided to keep the baby for herself. She's using legal technicalities to steal the child we've been preparing for. I'm heartbroken and don't know what to do. Please keep us in your thoughts during this difficult time. The post had dozens of comments, most of them supportive of Christine. She's not telling the whole story, I said. Of course not. But look at this. Trinity scrolled down to show me another post from that morning. She's asking for money now. The new post read, Thank you for all the support. We're looking into legal options to fight for our baby, but lawyer fees are expensive. If anyone can help, we've set up a fundraising page. She's crowdfunding a lawsuit against me? Looks like it. She's raised $800 so far. I stared at the screen. Even now, Christine was playing the victim, making herself the centre of attention. You know what? I'm done being silent. I took the laptop and started typing my own post. Not on Facebook. I'd never been active there. Instead, I opened Reddit and found a relevant community. Title: I was a surrogate for my sister. She broke our agreement, so I kept the baby. Now she's telling everyone I stole her child. I wrote out the whole story. Every detail. The original agreement, Christine leaving Cade, the nursery being given away, being called just the incubator, the legal battle, everything. I included screenshots of text messages and photos of the empty nursery. I ended with, I know some people will think I'm wrong for keeping the baby, but I refuse to be treated like a rental womb, while my sister gets praised for overcoming adversity. This is my son, and I'm going to protect him. Are you sure about posting this? Trinity asked. Completely sure. I hit submit and closed the laptop. My phone rang almost immediately. Christine: Maria, take that post down right now. No. You're humiliating our entire family. People are sharing it everywhere. Good. Maybe they'll get the real story instead of your victim narrative. I am the victim here. You stole my baby. I kept my baby. There's a difference. Mum and Dad are getting calls from relatives. Aunt Ruth saw the post. Uncle Mike is asking questions. You're destroying our reputation. You destroyed your own reputation when you left your husband for another man while I was carrying your baby. That's not fair. Neither is calling me an incubator. Christine was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, smaller. Maria, please, can we meet? Just the two of us. I need to see him. No. 5 minutes, please. I just want to hold him once. Christine, you made your choice. You chose Sean over your marriage. You chose your happiness over everyone else's. You chose to treat me like I didn't matter. Now I'm choosing my son over you. He's my son too. No, he's not. He never was. You wanted a baby, not this specific baby. You wanted the experience of being a mother without doing any of the work. Well, I'm doing the work now. I could have been a good mother. Maybe. But you were a terrible sister. I hung up and turned off my phone. The Reddit post exploded overnight. Thousands of upvotes, hundreds of comments, most of them supportive. People shared their own stories of family betrayal, of being taken advantage of finally standing up for themselves. One comment stuck with me. You didn't steal a baby, you saved yourself. A week passed. The calls and texts slowed down. Christine's fundraising page was shut down after people started commenting with links to my Reddit post. Sean deleted his social media accounts. My parents sent one final text. When you come to your senses, we'll be here. I didn't respond. Cade reached out once more, asking if he could send a gift for the baby. I said yes. He sent a beautiful wooden rocking horse with a note. For when he's older. I hope you're both happy. Trinity helped me set up the nursery in my apartment. The real nursery, with the crib I picked out and the changing table I wanted. It was small, but perfect. Any regrets? She asked as we hung pictures on the wall. I looked at my son sleeping in his crib, peaceful and safe. Just one. I regret not standing up for myself sooner. But you did it when it mattered most. Yeah, I did. Outside it was starting to rain. Inside my son stirred in his sleep, making the soft sounds babies make when they dream. I reached down and touched his tiny hand. You're worth it, I whispered. All of it. And for the first time in my life, I knew I was worth it too.
The contractions hit like a sledgehammer to my spine, and I knew this was it. 9 months of carrying my sister's baby, and now he was ready to meet the world. "Lucy, she's crowning!" the nurse called out, and I watched my older sister rush to the side of the hospital bed, her perfectly manicured hands clasped together like she was praying. My name is Eliza, and I thought I was doing the most beautiful thing in the world for the person I loved most. God, was I wrong. "You're doing amazing, Eliza," Lucy whispered, but her eyes weren't on me. They were fixed on the monitor, watching the baby's heartbeat like she was tracking stock prices. Just a few more pushes. Daniel stood behind her, his expensive suit somehow still crisp despite spending the last 12 hours in this sterile room. He had his phone out, recording everything, but the camera wasn't pointed at me. It was angled toward where the baby would emerge. "I can see his head," Dr. Martinez announced. "One more big push, Eliza." I gripped the bed rails and bore down with everything I had. The pain was indescribable, but all I could think about was how happy Lucy would be. How complete their little family would finally become after years of failed IVF treatments and miscarriages. The baby's cry filled the room, sharp and demanding, and I collapsed back against the pillows, exhausted but euphoric. "He's perfect," Dr. Martinez said, holding up this tiny, wrinkled miracle. 10 fingers, 10 toes, healthy lungs. I reached out instinctively, wanting to hold him, but Lucy was already there. The doctor placed him directly into her arms, and she started crying, these soft, grateful tears that made my heart swell. "Thank you," she whispered to me, but she never looked away from the baby. "Thank you so much, Eliza." Daniel moved closer, wrapping his arms around both Lucy and the baby. They looked like a magazine ad for the perfect family. I felt this warm glow spreading through my chest, despite the pain and exhaustion. "What are you going to name him?" I asked, trying to sit up a little. "Amos," Lucy said softly. "Amos Daniel." The nurse came over to check my vitals, and I watched Lucy and Daniel cooing over little Amos. They were so absorbed in him, whispering to each other about his tiny features, his perfect little hands. "The paperwork will be ready in about an hour," Dr. Martinez told them. "Then you can take him to the nursery for his first feeding." That's when something shifted. Lucy's expression changed, became more businesslike. She handed Amos to Daniel and turned to face me fully for the first time since the delivery. "Eliza," she said, her voice different now, colder. "I need you to understand something." I blinked, confused by her tone. "What do you mean?" "This baby is ours now. Mine and Daniel's. We appreciate what you've done, but your part in this is over." The words hit me like ice water. "Lucy, what are you talking about?" Daniel stepped forward, still holding Amos, but his expression had hardened too. "We think it would be best if you maintained some distance going forward, for everyone's sake." "Distance?" I couldn't process what they were saying. "He's my nephew. You're my sister." "No," Lucy said firmly. "He's our son, and you are our surrogate. There's a difference." The nurse looked uncomfortable and quietly slipped out of the room. I felt like I was drowning, like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. "Lucy, I carried him for 9 months. I felt every kick, every hiccup. I gave up law school for this year to—" "And we're grateful," Daniel interrupted. "But we need to establish boundaries now. Clean breaks are better for attachment purposes." I stared at my sister, searching her face for any trace of the woman who used to braid my hair and sneak me cookies before dinner. But her eyes were cold, calculating. "Your services are no longer required," Lucy said, each word precise and cutting. "He's ours now." The room went dead silent except for Amos's soft breathing. I felt something crack inside my chest, something that had been holding my world together. They walked out without another word, taking the baby with them, leaving me alone in that sterile room with the smell of antiseptic and the echo of my sister's betrayal. That's when I knew I had to fight back. I was still staring at the door they'd walked through when it opened again. For a split second, I thought Lucy had come back to apologize, to tell me this was all some horrible misunderstanding. Instead, Daniel walked in alone, carrying a manila envelope. "I almost forgot," he said, like he was delivering takeout. He set the envelope on my bedside table. "Your compensation." I looked at the envelope like it might bite me. "My what?" "The final payment, as agreed in the contract." He straightened his tie. "Lucy wanted me to remind you that the confidentiality clause is still in effect. We'd prefer if you didn't discuss the details of this arrangement with anyone." "Details of this arrangement?" My voice cracked. "Daniel, I'm her sister. And we appreciate the family discount," he said without a trace of irony. "But business is business, Eliza. You provided a service, we're compensating you fairly, and now we all move on with our lives." The door opened again, and my mother rushed in, her face flushed from running down the hospital corridor. "Oh, honey, how are you feeling?" Mom wrapped me in a hug that smelled like her lavender perfume and anxiety. "I got here as fast as I could after Lucy called." "Where is she?" I asked, "Getting Amos settled in the nursery." "She's so happy, Eliza. You've given her such a gift." Mom's eyes were bright with tears. "I'm so proud of you both." Daniel cleared his throat. "I should go check on them. Eliza, thank you again for everything." He paused at the door. "I trust we understand each other about moving forward." After he left, Mom sat on the edge of my bed, still beaming. "I can't believe I'm finally a grandmother. Did you see how tiny his fingers are?" "Mom, did Lucy say anything to you about boundaries?" Her smile flickered. "What do you mean?" "She told me I need to keep my distance, that my part in this is over." Mom's hands twisted in her lap. "Well, honey, you know how new mothers can be. Very protective. I'm sure once she settles in. She called me a surrogate, Mom, like I was hired help. You were technically... I'm her sister." The words exploded out of me. "I didn't do this for money. I did it because I love her." Mom reached for my hand. "I know you did, sweetheart. And Lucy knows that too. She's just overwhelmed right now. Give her some time." "Time for what? To pretend I don't exist?" "Don't be dramatic, Eliza. Your family. That will never change." But something in her voice told me she wasn't entirely convinced either. After Mom left to give Lucy some support, I was alone again. I picked up the envelope Daniel had left, my hands shaking. Inside was a check for $25,000 and a typed note on Lucy's personal stationery. "Eliza, thank you for your sacrifice. This should help you get back on your feet and return to law school. Please respect our need for space as we bond with our son. Our son, not the baby or Amos. Our son." I grabbed my phone and called Iris, my best friend since college. She answered on the first ring. "Eliza, how did it go? Is the baby okay?" "Iris, I need you to come to the hospital, now." "What's wrong? Are you hurt?" "Just, please, room 314, and don't tell anyone you're coming." She arrived 40 minutes later with coffee and that concerned look she got when she knew I was about to fall apart. I told her everything: Lucy's cold dismissal, Daniel's business transaction speech, the check, the note. "They paid you off," Iris said flatly, "like you were some kind of service provider." "That's exactly what they did." "And your mom?" "Thinks I'm being dramatic. That Lucy just needs time to adjust." Iris set down her coffee and looked at me hard. "Eliza, what aren't you telling me?" I hesitated. During the pregnancy, there had been moments, small things that seemed off at the time, but that I'd dismissed. Lucy's comments about keeping things professional. Daniel's insistence on handling all the medical appointments himself. The way they'd both reacted when I'd mentioned wanting to babysit sometimes. There were signs, I admitted. Things they said during the pregnancy. I thought I was being paranoid. "What kind of things?" "Lucy asked me once if I was getting too attached. When I said I loved feeling him move, she got this look on her face, like I'd said something inappropriate." Iris's jaw tightened. "What else?" "Daniel made a joke about me being their rental womb." I laughed it off, but Lucy didn't correct him. She just smiled. "Jesus, Eliza." And last month, when I suggested we should start thinking about how often I'd see him after he was born, Lucy said we'd cross that bridge when we came to it. But she wouldn't look at me when she said it. Iris stood up and started pacing. "They planned this. They knew from the beginning they were going to cut you out." "I think so." "What are you going to do?" I looked at the check again, at Lucy's neat handwriting dismissing 9 months of my life like a business transaction. I'm gonna fight back. 2 days later, I was sitting in Iris's living room, still sore from delivery but determined. Her partner Rowan was there too, looking through a stack of papers with the focused intensity that made him such a good attorney. Tell me again about the contract signing, Iris said, refilling my tea. Every detail you can remember. I closed my eyes, thinking back to that day 6 months ago. We met at Penelope's office. She's been the family lawyer forever, handled my parents' wills, Lucy's house purchase, everything. And Penelope reviewed the surrogacy agreement? Rowan asked without looking up. She was supposed to, but her assistant had just quit, and she was juggling 3 other cases. She kept getting interrupted by phone calls. Iris leaned forward. What kind of interruptions? Her biggest client was having some crisis. She must have taken 5 calls during our meeting. Each time she'd put us on hold and step out of the room. So she was distracted, Rowan said. Completely. At one point, she came back from a call and couldn't even remember which clause we'd been discussing. Rowan finally looked up. And you had the contract beforehand? To review? This was the part I'd been dreading to admit. Lucy gave me a copy 3 days before the signing. Said I should look it over, make sure I was comfortable with everything. And? I took a deep breath. I made some changes. Iris nearly choked on her coffee. What kind of changes? Small ones. I was in my 3rd year of law school before I took leave, remember? I know how to read contracts. Rowan set down the papers. Eliza, what exactly did you change? There was a clause about parental rights termination. The original version said my rights would be automatically terminated upon birth. I modified it. How? I changed it to say my rights would be terminated upon completion of all legal documentation and a mandatory 7-day waiting period. The room went dead silent. You changed the contract and didn't tell them? Iris asked. I was protecting myself. Something felt off about how eager they were to rush through everything. Lucy kept pushing to sign earlier, to get it finalized as quickly as possible. Rowan was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Did you initial the changes? Yes, and I made sure the new version was what got signed. But Penelope didn't catch it. She was on another call when we got to that section. She just flipped through, saw our signatures, and notarized it. Iris started laughing. Not happy laughter, but the kind that comes when something is so unbelievable you can't process it any other way. So legally speaking, Rowan said slowly, you're still the mother. For now. Until the 7-day period expires and all the documentation is filed. When does the 7 days end? I checked my phone. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. Rowan jumped up and started pacing. We need to see this contract. Now. I have a copy in my apartment. No, we need the signed original, the one that's filed. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Lucy's contact. My finger hovered over her name. I can't just ask her for it. She'll know something's up. What about Penelope? Iris suggested. She'd have to give it to me if I requested it, right? I looked at Rowan. Client privilege? You're all clients on this contract. She'd have to provide a copy to any party who requests it. I dialed Penelope's office. Her new assistant answered. Hi, this is Eliza. I need a copy of the surrogacy agreement I signed last month. Can I pick it up today? Let me check with Ms. Anderson. Can you hold? The hold music felt like it lasted forever. Finally, the assistant came back. She says you can pick it up any time before 5. Do you need it notarized or certified? Just a regular copy is fine. After I hung up, Rowan was already grabbing his keys. We're going now, he said. All of us. An hour later, we were back in Iris's living room. Rowan had the contract spread across the coffee table, a yellow highlighter in his hand. Here, he said, pointing to a section near the bottom. Clause 12b. Biological mother's parental rights shall be terminated upon completion of all legal documentation and a mandatory 7-day waiting period following birth. And they signed this version? Iris asked. Both of them. Look. I pointed to Lucy and Daniel's signatures at the bottom. Rowan sat back in his chair, running his hands through his hair. Eliza, do you understand what this means? That I still have legal rights to Amos? More than that, until tomorrow at 3 p.m., you are legally his mother. Not Lucy. You. My phone buzzed with a text from Lucy. Family group chat. Bringing our sweet boy home tomorrow. Can't wait to start our new life as a family of 3. I showed the message to Iris and Rowan. Over my dead body, I said. We need to file an emergency injunction, Rowan said, already pulling out his laptop. Today? Before they try to take him home. What does that mean exactly? I asked. It means we go to court and ask a judge to prevent them from removing Amos from the hospital until this gets sorted out. Iris was reading over the contract again. But won't they just argue that Eliza is being vindictive? That she's trying to steal their baby? That's why we need to move fast and smart, Rowan said, typing rapidly. We're not claiming Eliza wants to keep the baby permanently. We're just saying the legal process wasn't completed properly. My phone rang. Lucy's name flashed on the screen. Don't answer it, Rowan said immediately. But what if... Don't. Answer. It. The call went to voicemail. Then it rang again. And again. She knows something's wrong, I said. Good. Let her sweat. 3 hours later, we were standing in the courthouse. Rowan had filed the emergency petition, and we were waiting to see if a judge would hear us. Ms. Walton? A clerk appeared. Judge Martinez will see you in chambers in 5 minutes. Different Martinez than the doctor? I asked Rowan. Different Martinez. And lucky for us, she's known for being thorough. Judge Martinez was a small woman with sharp eyes and graying hair pulled back in a tight bun. She looked like she'd seen every kind of family drama imaginable and had no patience for nonsense. Mr. Simmons, she said to Rowan, explain to me why I should prevent these people from taking home their baby. Your Honor, the surrogacy agreement clearly states that parental rights don't transfer until all legal documentation is complete and a 7-day waiting period has elapsed. That period doesn't end until tomorrow at 3 p.m. She flipped through the contract. And the respondent signed this version? Yes, Your Honor. Both parties. Ms. Walton, Judge Martinez turned to me. What is it you're asking for here? Do you want to keep this child? The question hit me like a punch to the gut. Did I want to keep Amos? I'd carried him for 9 months, felt every kick, every movement. But I'd also agreed to give him to Lucy and Daniel. I want them to follow the law, Your Honor. And I want to be treated with respect, not discarded like I was nothing. That's not really an answer to my question. I took a deep breath. I don't know yet. But I deserve the legal right to make that decision during the time period I'm entitled to. Judge Martinez nodded slowly. I'm granting a temporary restraining order. The child remains at the hospital until we can have a full hearing. I'm scheduling that for Friday morning. As we walked out of the courthouse, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Missed calls from Lucy, Daniel, Mom, even Dad. Turn it off, Rowan advised. Let them go through your attorney now. You're my attorney? As of right now, yes. We drove straight to the hospital. At the nurse's station, I could see Lucy and Daniel through the nursery window. Lucy was holding Amos, and Daniel was pacing back and forth, clearly agitated. Ms. Walton, the head nurse approached us. We received the court order. The baby cannot be discharged until further notice. Thank you. Lucy must have seen me through the window because she came storming out of the nursery, her face flushed with anger. What the hell do you think you're doing? She hissed. Following the contract we all signed. This is insane, Eliza. He's our baby. Actually, Rowan stepped forward. Legally speaking, he's not. Not until tomorrow at 3 p.m. at the earliest. Daniel joined us, his jaw clenched. Who is this? My attorney. Your attorney? Daniel laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. You hired a lawyer? Against your own sister? You treated me like hired help, so I'm acting like it. Lucy's eyes filled with tears. Eliza, please, don't do this. You're going to ruin everything. I'm not ruining anything. I'm protecting my rights. Your rights? Daniel's voice was getting louder. You have no rights. You were a surrogate. Keep your voice down, a nurse warned. This is a hospital. Mom appeared at the end of the hallway, looking frantic. What's going on? Lucy called me crying, saying something about lawyers and courts. Ask your other daughter, Lucy said bitterly. She's trying to steal our baby. I'm not stealing anything, I said. I'm making sure the legal process is followed correctly. Mom looked between us, confused and upset. Can't you two work this out? You're sisters. Tell that to Lucy, I said. She's the one who decided I was just a service provider. That's not what Your services are no longer required, I quoted back to her. He's ours now. Ring any bells? Lucy's face went white. Daniel put his arm around her shoulders. We need to call our lawyer, he said. Good idea, Rowan replied. Have them call me. As they walked away, Mom stayed behind, looking at me with disappointment. Eliza, honey, what are you really trying to accomplish here? Justice, Mom, and maybe a little respect. At what cost? I looked through the nursery window at Amos, sleeping peacefully in his bassinet, completely unaware that his entire world was about to change. I guess we'll find out. By Thursday morning, the story had leaked. I woke up to 17 missed calls and a text from my cousin Sarah. Is it true you're suing Lucy for the baby? It's all over Facebook. I called Rowan immediately. How did this get out? Could be anyone. Court filings are public record, or maybe someone at the hospital talked. My phone rang. Unknown number. Don't answer, Rowan said. Probably a reporter. A reporter? Local custody battles involving surrogacy make good headlines, especially when it's family. I ignored the call, but then my phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. We need to talk. Meet me at Starbucks on 5th Street. 1 hour. Come alone. Absolutely not, Iris said when I showed her the message. That sounds like a threat. Or a bribe, Rowan added. Don't go. But something in Daniel's tone made me curious. What if he wants to apologize? To work something out? Then he can do it through lawyers. I went anyway. Daniel was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with his back to the wall. He looked like he hadn't slept. Thank you for coming, he said as I sat down. What do you want, Daniel? He slid an envelope across the table. $50,000. Cash. You drop the legal action, we all move on. I didn't touch the envelope. You think you can buy me off? I think you're a smart woman who understands that this situation benefits no one. Lucy is falling apart. Your parents are devastated. And that baby needs stability, not a custody battle. That baby has a name. Amos. Daniel's jaw tightened. Don't get attached, Eliza. You're not keeping him. Maybe not, but that's my decision to make. Is it really? Or are you just trying to hurt Lucy because you're jealous? The accusation hit like a slap. Jealous of what? Her success, her marriage, her life. You've always been in her shadow, and now you see a chance to destroy what she's built. I stood up. You don't know anything about me. I know you dropped out of law school. I know you're 29 and single with no real career prospects. I know you agreed to be our surrogate because you needed the money and the purpose. Each word was calculated to wound. You're wrong. Am I? Take the money, Eliza. Start over somewhere else. Lucy and I will make sure Amos has a good life. Like you made sure I'd have a good relationship with him? Daniel leaned back. We never promised you anything beyond what was in the contract. The contract you clearly didn't read carefully enough. His face darkened. That was a mistake. One we're going to fix. What's that supposed to mean? It means we have resources you don't. Lawyers, money, connections. You think one little clause is going to stand up against all of that? I grabbed the envelope and threw it back at him. Keep your money. As I walked out, I heard him call after me. This isn't over, Eliza. I drove straight to Rowan's office, my hands shaking. He listened to my account of the meeting, taking notes. He threatened you, Rowan said. That was incredibly stupid of him. What do you mean? Did you record the conversation? No, but I stopped. Wait, yes, I did. I pulled out my phone. I have a voice memo app that I accidentally turned on when I was trying to silence my phone. Rowan's eyes lit up. Play it. We listened to the entire conversation. Daniel's voice came through clearly. The bribe attempt, the personal attacks, the veiled threats. This is gold, Rowan said. We're adding this to our evidence file. That evening, I was at my parents' house for what Mom had called an emergency family meeting. Dad was pacing the living room while Mom sat on the couch, wringing her hands. This has gone too far, Mom said as soon as I walked in. The whole town is talking about it. Let them talk, Dad said. Eliza's doing what she has to do. She's destroying the family, Travis. Lucy destroyed the family when she treated our daughter like a broodmare. Mom started crying. I just want my girls to love each other again. That ship sailed when Lucy decided I was disposable, I said. You don't mean that. Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. Dad went to answer it, and I heard Penelope's voice in the hallway. I need to speak with Eliza, she said, sounding agitated. It's about the contract. We all gathered in the living room. Penelope looked nervous, clutching a briefcase. I made a mistake, she said without preamble. A big one. What kind of mistake? I asked. I should have caught your changes to the contract, but I was distracted, and I didn't review it properly before the signing. Okay. But that's not the worst part. She opened her briefcase and pulled out a folder. I've been going through my files, and I found something troubling. She handed me a document. It was a copy of the original surrogacy agreement, the one Lucy had given me to review. Look at the signature page, Penelope said. I flipped to the back and felt my blood run cold. There were already signatures on it. Lucy's and Daniel's, dated 3 days before our meeting. They signed the original version before you ever saw it, Penelope said, which means they never intended for me to have any input, I finished. They were just going through the motions. Dad exploded. Those lying, manipulative— There's more, Penelope interrupted. Daniel called me yesterday. He wanted to know if there was any way to invalidate the contract you actually signed. When I told him no, he asked about other options. What kind of options? He wanted to know if we could claim you were mentally unstable, that the pregnancy hormones affected your judgment. The room went dead silent. He what? Mom whispered. I told him absolutely not. But Eliza, you need to know. They're not going to give up easily. I looked at the pre-signed contract in my hands, evidence of their deception from the very beginning. Neither am I. Friday morning arrived with a media circus outside the courthouse. 3 news vans were parked on the street, and I could see reporters with cameras waiting by the entrance. Local news picked it up, Rowan explained as we walked through the back entrance. Sister versus sister custody battle. It's catnip for them. Inside, Lucy and Daniel were already seated with their attorney, a sharp-looking woman in an expensive suit who I recognized from billboards around town. Margaret something. She handled high-profile divorces and corporate disputes. Lucy looked terrible. Her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she had dark circles under her eyes. When she saw me, her expression hardened. All rise, the bailiff announced. The Honorable Judge Martinez presiding. Judge Martinez took her seat and surveyed the packed courtroom. This is a custody hearing, not a circus. Anyone who disrupts these proceedings will be removed. Margaret stood first. Your Honor, my clients are the intended parents in a straightforward surrogacy arrangement. Ms. Walton is attempting to manipulate a minor clerical error to steal their child. Objection to the characterization, Rowan said. The contract modification was not clerical. It was deliberate and legally binding. Noted. Ms. Margaret, present your case. Margaret called Daniel to the stand first. He looked composed, professional in his navy suit. Mr. Hayes, please describe your relationship with the respondent. Eliza is my sister-in-law. When my wife Lucy couldn't conceive, Eliza generously offered to be our surrogate. And what was your understanding of the arrangement? That she would carry our child, and then we would raise him as our son. It was always meant to be temporary. Did you have any indication that Ms. Walton intended to keep the baby? Daniel paused, glancing at me. Not initially, but during the pregnancy, she became increasingly possessive. Can you give an example? She started referring to the baby as her baby. She wanted to be involved in naming decisions. She talked about babysitting and being a big part of his life. I watched Lucy nod along, her face a mask of wounded innocence. And how did you respond to these concerns? We tried to be gentle but firm about boundaries. We didn't want to hurt her feelings, but we needed her to understand that this was our child. Rowan stood for cross-examination. Mr. Hayes, did you and your wife sign the original surrogacy contract before Ms. Walton ever saw it? Daniel shifted uncomfortably. I don't recall the exact timeline. Let me refresh your memory. Rowan held up the pre-signed document. This is the original contract, dated 3 days before your meeting with Ms. Walton. Are these your signatures? We may have signed a preliminary version. Yes or no, Mr. Hayes? Are these your signatures? Yes. So you had already committed to terms before allowing Ms. Walton to review the agreement? We were eager to move forward. Eager enough to deceive your sister-in-law about having input in the process? Margaret objected, but the damage was done. The courtroom murmured, and I saw several people shaking their heads. Lucy took the stand next. She was crying before she even sat down. Mrs. Hayes, how has this situation affected you? It's been devastating, Lucy sobbed. I've wanted to be a mother for so long. We've been through years of failed treatments, miscarriages. When Eliza offered to help, I thought it was a miracle. And now I'm terrified I'll never get to hold my son again. Eliza is using him as a weapon to hurt me. Why do you think she's doing this? Lucy looked directly at me. Because she's always resented my success, my marriage, my happiness. This is her way of destroying everything I've worked for. The accusation hung in the air like poison. I felt every eye in the courtroom on me. When Rowan cross-examined Lucy, he was gentler, but no less effective. Mrs. Hayes, what exactly did you say to your sister immediately after the birth? I thanked her for the gift she'd given us. Is that all you said? Lucy hesitated. I may have mentioned that we needed to establish boundaries. Your exact words, please. I don't remember exactly. Let me help you. Rowan pulled out his phone. I have a recording of a conversation between Ms. Walton and her friend, where she recounted your words immediately after the birth. Would you like me to play it? Lucy's face went white. That's not. Your services are no longer required. He's ours now. Rowan's voice was clear and cold. Do those words sound familiar? The courtroom erupted. Judge Martinez banged her gavel. Order! I will have order! Margaret was whispering frantically to Lucy and Daniel. I could see panic in their eyes. Finally, it was my turn to testify. I walked to the stand on shaking legs, acutely aware of the cameras in the back of the room. Ms. Walton, Rowan began, why did you agree to be a surrogate for your sister? Because I love her. Because I wanted to help her become a mother. And what did you expect your relationship with the child to be? I expected to be his aunt, to be part of his life, to watch him grow up and know that I helped bring him into the world. When did that expectation change? I looked at Lucy, who was staring at her hands. The moment he was born, when Lucy looked me in the eye and told me I was no longer needed. How did that make you feel? Like I'd been used? Like 9 months of my life, of carrying her child, of sacrificing my body and my education, meant nothing to her. Do you want to keep the baby, Miss Walton? The question I'd been dreading. The entire courtroom held its breath. I want what's best for Amos, but I also want to be treated like a human being, not a rental womb. And I want Lucy and Daniel to be held accountable for their lies. Judge Martinez called a recess. As we filed out, I heard Lucy crying in the hallway. "This is all your fault," she was saying to Daniel. "I told you we should have been nicer to her." "It's too late for that now," he replied grimly. I realized he was right. Whatever happened next, there was no going back. After the recess, Judge Martinez returned with a stern expression. The courtroom was packed tighter than before. Word had spread, and I could see neighbors, extended family members, and people I didn't even recognize filling the seats. "Before I render my decision," Judge Martinez said, "I want to address some additional evidence that has come to light." Margaret looked confused. "Your Honor, we weren't informed of any new evidence. Mr. Simmons brought it to my attention during the recess." Judge Martinez held up a folder. "It appears there are some irregularities in the documentation filed with this court." Daniel went rigid in his seat. Lucy grabbed his arm. "Mr. Hayes, did you or did you not attempt to file amended birth certificate paperwork yesterday without Ms. Walton's knowledge or consent?" The question hit like a bomb. Margaret was frantically whispering to Daniel, but he looked like a deer in headlights. "Your Honor, I'm not sure what you're referring to. I have the filing right here. Submitted yesterday at 4:47 p.m. It lists you and your wife as the sole legal parents, with no mention of the surrogacy arrangement or the pending custody issue." The courtroom erupted in whispers. I stared at Daniel in shock. He'd tried to make himself Amos's legal father while we were in court fighting over custody. "That's fraud," Rowan said, standing up. "Attempted fraud of the court system." Margaret was on her feet. "Your Honor, if my client filed paperwork, it was surely an administrative error that would have given your clients legal custody while this case was pending?" Judge Martinez's voice was ice cold. "Mr. Hayes, stand up." Daniel rose slowly, his face ashen. "Did you think I wouldn't find out? Did you think you could manipulate the system while asking this court to grant you custody?" "Your Honor, I was just trying to protect my family by committing fraud." Lucy started crying again, but these weren't the composed tears from her testimony. These were desperate, panicked sobs. "I didn't know," she kept saying. "I didn't know he did that." Judge Martinez turned to me. "Ms. Walton, in light of this new information, I need to ask you directly, what outcome are you seeking here?" The entire courtroom fell silent. This was it, the moment everything had been building toward. I stood up slowly. "Your Honor, I want joint custody." The word surprised even me. I hadn't planned to say that. "Joint custody?" Judge Martinez repeated. "Yes. I carried Amos for 9 months. I felt every kick, every movement. I gave up a year of my life, my education, my body to bring him into this world. I'm not trying to steal him from Lucy and Daniel, but I'm not going to be erased from his life either." Lucy's sobs got louder. "No, no, no, he's my baby. My baby." "He's both of ours," I said, looking directly at her. "Whether you like it or not." Margaret was shaking her head. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. Surrogates don't typically retain parental rights. Surrogates typically don't get treated like disposable incubators either," Rowan interrupted. "And their intended parents don't typically commit fraud." Judge Martinez held up her hand for silence. "I've heard enough. This case presents several troubling elements: deception in the contract process, attempted fraud of the court system, and a clear breakdown in family relationships. She paused, looking at each of us in turn. However, at the center of all this is a newborn child who deserves stability and love. Mr. Hayes, your attempted filing of fraudulent documents is deeply concerning and will be referred to the district attorney's office for review. Daniel's face went white. Margaret grabbed his arm. Mrs. Hayes, while I understand your desire to be a mother, your treatment of your sister was callous and legally problematic. Lucy was still crying, but quieter now. Ms. Walton, your modification of the contract, while legally valid, shows a level of distrust that suggests this arrangement was problematic from the beginning. I held my breath. Therefore, I am granting temporary joint custody. Ms. Walton will have visitation rights and input on major decisions regarding the child's welfare. This arrangement will be reviewed in 6 months to determine if it should be made permanent. The courtroom exploded. Lucy screamed, "No!" and collapsed into Daniel's arms. Margaret was already gathering her papers, clearly planning an appeal. Furthermore, Judge Martinez continued over the noise, I am ordering family mediation for all parties. This child deserves better than a family torn apart by greed and manipulation. As the gavel came down, I felt a strange mix of victory and devastation. I'd won, but at what cost? Lucy was being helped out of the courtroom, still sobbing. As she passed my row, she stopped and looked at me with pure hatred. I will never forgive you for this, she whispered. Never. Daniel paused too, his face cold and calculating. This isn't over, Eliza. We'll appeal. We'll fight this until we win. Good luck with that fraud charge, I replied. After they left, the courtroom slowly emptied. Mom and Dad approached me, their faces showing the strain of the last week. Are you happy now? Mom asked quietly. I'm not sure happy is the right word. Dad put his arm around me. You did what you had to do, sweetheart. Did I? Or did I just destroy our family over pride? Lucy destroyed this family the moment she decided you were disposable, Dad said firmly. You just refused to stay disposed of. Rowan was packing up his briefcase. The fraud investigation will take a few weeks. Daniel could face criminal charges. What does that mean for custody? It strengthens your position significantly. Courts don't look kindly on parents who try to manipulate the system. As we walked out of the courthouse, reporters shouted questions at me. I ignored them all, but I could hear the headlines already forming. Sister wins custody. Battle against surrogate family. Surrogacy gone wrong. Family torn apart. That evening, I sat in the hospital nursery, holding Amos for the first time since his birth. He was so small, so perfect, completely unaware that his entire world had just been turned upside down. What have I done to you, little guy? I whispered. A nurse approached. Ms. Walton, your sister is here. She's asking to see the baby. I looked up to see Lucy standing in the doorway, her eyes red and swollen from crying. For a moment, we just stared at each other across the room that had become our battlefield. Can we talk? She asked quietly. I nodded, still holding Amos. I think we need to. Lucy sat down in the chair across from me, her hands trembling. The nursery was quiet except for the soft beeping of monitors and Amos's gentle breathing. He's beautiful, she whispered, staring at the baby in my arms. He is. I've been awake for 3 days straight, just thinking about what I said to you, what we did to you. I didn't respond. I wasn't ready to make this easy for her. Daniel's been arrested, she continued. The fraud charges. His law firm suspended him pending investigation. I'm sorry. Are you? I looked at her directly. I'm sorry your husband is an idiot who thought he could outsmart the legal system. I'm not sorry he got caught. Lucy's face crumpled. Everything's falling apart, Eliza. The partners at Daniel's firm are talking about termination. My friends won't return my calls. Mom won't even look at me. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided I was disposable. I know I was horrible to you. She leaned forward, but I was so scared. Scared of what? Of losing him, of you changing your mind, of not being enough. Her voice broke. I've wanted to be a mother for so long, and when it finally happened, I panicked. I thought if I pushed you away immediately, it would be easier, cleaner. Cleaner for who? For me, for us, for everyone. She wiped her eyes. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Amos stirred in my arms, making a soft sound. Both Lucy and I looked down at him. He has your nose, I said quietly. And your stubborn chin, Lucy replied with a watery smile. We sat in silence for a moment, both watching the baby sleep. What happens now? Lucy asked. I don't know. The court ordered mediation. We have to figure out how to co-parent. Do you really want that? Joint custody? I looked at Amos, then at my sister. I want him to know where he came from. I want him to understand that he was wanted by all of us, not just you and Daniel. And I want you to remember that family isn't disposable. Lucy nodded, tears streaming down her face. Can you ever forgive me? I don't know yet, but I'm willing to try. The nursery door opened and Mom walked in, looking exhausted. The nurse said you were both here. She looked between us uncertainly. How are we doing? We're talking, I said. That's more than you've done in a week. Mom sat down heavily. This whole situation has been a nightmare. It didn't have to be, Lucy said quietly. If I hadn't been so selfish, if you hadn't been so scared, I corrected. There's a difference. Mom looked surprised. You're defending her? I'm trying to understand her. There's a difference there too. Dad appeared in the doorway, followed by Iris. The small nursery was getting crowded. How's our boy doing? Dad asked, his voice gentle. He's perfect, Lucy and I said at the same time, then looked at each other in surprise. Well, that's something, Iris said dryly. A nurse approached our group. I'm sorry, but we can only have 2 visitors at a time in the nursery. I'll go, Lucy said, standing up. Eliza should have time with him. Lucy, wait. I stood up too, still holding Amos. Do you want to hold him? Her face lit up with desperate hope. Can I? I carefully transferred Amos to her arms. She held him like he was made of glass, tears falling onto his blanket. Hi, baby boy, she whispered. Mommy's here. Both your mommies are here. The words hit me like a punch to the chest, but not in a bad way. For the first time since this whole mess started, something felt right. We need ground rules, I said, if we're going to make this work. Lucy nodded eagerly. Whatever you want. No more lies. No more manipulation. No more treating me like hired help. Never again. I promise. And Daniel needs to get his act together. I won't have Amos around someone who thinks fraud is an acceptable problem-solving technique. He's getting counseling and anger management. The arrest was a wake-up call. Dad cleared his throat. What about the media circus? This whole thing's been on the news. Let them talk, I said. We know the truth now. That's what matters. Iris stepped forward. For what it's worth, I think you're both doing the right thing. Amos is lucky to have people who love him this much. Even if we're terrible at showing it sometimes, Lucy added ruefully. Mom stood up and hugged both of us, careful not to disturb the baby. My girls, my stubborn, complicated, impossible girls. We get it from you, I said. You get it from your father, Mom replied, making Dad laugh. As the sun set outside the nursery windows, we took turns holding Amos, talking quietly about schedules and arrangements and the future. It wasn't perfect. There was still hurt and anger and a long road ahead of us. But it was a start. Eliza, Lucy said as we prepared to leave. Thank you. For what? For fighting for him, for all of us, even when we didn't deserve it. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw something I hadn't seen in years. The Lucy who used to braid my hair and sneak me cookies. She was still there, underneath all the fear and desperation. That's what family does, I said. We fight for each other, even when we're fighting with each other. Especially then, Dad added. As we walked out of the hospital together, I realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone. It's refusing to let them destroy you. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, it's finding a way to save them too. Amos was going home with all of us. Messy, complicated, imperfect us. And maybe that was exactly how it was supposed to be.
Francesca, darling, could you be a lamb and fetch my reading glasses? I simply cannot make heads or tails of this seating chart without them. I looked up from the crystal champagne flutes I'd been polishing, because apparently that's what wives do at charity galas, and met Deborah's expectant gaze. My mother-in-law stood there in her Chanel suit, one perfectly manicured hand pressed to her forehead like she was auditioning for a Victorian fainting scene. "Of course," I said, setting down the cloth. "Where did you leave them?" "Oh, I haven't the faintest idea. Perhaps check the morning room or the library. You know how scattered I get when I'm planning these events." Scattered. Right. Deborah could recite the Forbes 400 from memory, but somehow misplaced her glasses every time I was within earshot. "My name is Francesca, and I've been married into the Summers family for 6 years. 6 years of being treated like the help at my own husband's charity events. I found the glasses exactly where I knew they'd be, sitting on Deborah's nightstand, probably placed there deliberately. When I returned to the ballroom of their Beacon Hill mansion, she was deep in conversation with Carmen, Orlando's sister. "Honestly don't know what Orlando was thinking," Carmen was saying, her voice carrying that particular pitch women use when they want to be overheard. "I mean, she's pretty enough, but at these events you need someone who can actually hold a conversation about more than, well, whatever it is she does all day. The foundation board members expect a certain level of sophistication," Deborah replied, accepting her glasses from me without so much as a glance. "Thank goodness we have you and me to handle the real networking tonight." I could have mentioned that I'd graduated summa cum laude from MIT. I could have pointed out that while they were networking, I'd been quietly building something they couldn't even comprehend. Instead, I smiled and went back to polishing crystal. "Francesca," Orlando's voice boomed across the ballroom. My husband strode in wearing his favourite navy suit, the one that made him look like he belonged on a yacht club brochure. "There you are. Shane's here, and we need to go over some last-minute details." Shane Hicks followed behind him, all slicked back hair and expensive cologne that couldn't quite mask the smell of desperation. Orlando's business partner had the kind of smile that made you want to count your fingers after shaking his hand. "Ladies," Shane nodded to Deborah and Carmen, then his eyes slid over me like I was part of the furniture. "Everything looks spectacular. This gala's going to save the foundation's reputation." "Save it?" I asked, looking up from the champagne flutes. Orlando's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Just an expression, sweetheart. Shane means it'll enhance our already stellar reputation." But Shane was already pulling out his phone, typing furiously. "We should talk privately," he muttered to Orlando. "Use the study," Deborah suggested. "Francesca, dear, could you see about the flower arrangements? I think the lilies in the foyer are looking a bit peaked." I nodded and headed toward the foyer, but stopped when I heard Shane's voice through the study's slightly open door. "Complete disaster if this gets out. The board's already asking questions about the missing funds." "Keep your voice down," Orlando hissed. "We just need to get through tonight. Once we announce the anonymous donation, everyone will forget about the audit." $2 million, Orlando. That's not pocket change, even for your family. And if they trace it back, they won't. The donor insisted on complete anonymity until the reveal tonight. We use the donation to cover what's missing, and nobody's the wiser. My hands stilled on the lily stems. Missing funds, anonymous donation, cover-up. What if the donor changes their mind? Shane's voice was getting higher. What if they want credit before we can... Then we're screwed, Orlando said flatly. But they won't. Trust me, I know exactly how to handle people like this. They want to feel important, make a big splash. We give them their moment, and everyone wins. I backed away from the door, my mind racing. The foundation, the crown jewel of the Summers family legacy, the thing Deborah never stopped bragging about, was in trouble, real trouble, and somehow they had an anonymous donor ready to bail them out. I walked back to the ballroom, picked up another champagne flute, and started polishing, but this time I was smiling, because I knew exactly who that anonymous donor was. The coffee shop on Newbury Street was busy enough that nobody would notice two people having a quiet conversation in the corner. I'd chosen it specifically for that reason. Leighton Webb sat across from me, nervously stirring his latte for the third time. "I shouldn't be here," he said, glancing around like Orlando might materialize from behind the pastry display. "If they find out I'm talking to you..." "They won't," I said, sliding a manila envelope across the small table. "But I need you to look at this first." Leighton opened the envelope and his face went pale. Inside were printouts of financial records, bank transfers, and email chains I'd been quietly collecting for months. My little fintech startup had given me access to some very interesting financial tracking software. "How did you..." he started. "Does it matter? What matters is whether I'm right." He flipped through the pages, his hands shaking slightly. "Jesus, Francesca, this is everything. The shell companies, the redirected donations, even the fake invoices Shane created. So, I am right. Orlando and Shane have been embezzling from the foundation for almost 2 years, Leighton confirmed, closing the envelope quickly. I tried to bring it to the board's attention 6 months ago, but Orlando convinced them I was having a nervous breakdown. Said the stress of the audit was getting to me. How much? Total, nearly 3 million. They've been using foundation money to cover Orlando's gambling debts and Shane's failed investments. The charity work, the grants, the scholarships, all of it's been running on fumes. I took a sip of my coffee, letting the information settle. And the anonymous donation they're expecting tonight? Leighton's eyes widened. You know about that? I know a lot of things. The question is, what happens if that donation doesn't come through? The foundation collapses publicly. The board will demand a full investigation. The IRS will get involved and... He rubbed his forehead. Orlando and Shane will probably go to prison. Good. The word came out sharper than I'd intended. Leighton stared at me. Francesca, I know your marriage isn't perfect, but this will destroy him. Destroy the whole family. The whole family has been trying to destroy me for 6 years, I said. Maybe it's time they got a taste of their own medicine. My phone buzzed. A text from Penny. Coffee later. Need to hear how the recon mission went. I smiled and typed back. Can't wait to tell you. There's something else, Leighton said quietly. Shane's been pressuring me to alter the books. Make it look like the missing money was spent on legitimate expenses. He says if I don't cooperate, he'll make sure I never work in accounting again. What did you tell him? That I needed more time. But Francesca, if they're desperate enough to threaten me... He leaned forward. Be careful. Desperate people do stupid things. I left the coffee shop and drove straight to Penny's apartment in the South End. She opened the door before I could knock, probably because I'd been texting her updates all the morning. Spill, she said, pulling me inside, and don't leave out any details. Penny had been my roommate at MIT and the only person who'd warned me about marrying Orlando. She'd also been the only person to visit me regularly after the wedding, when the Summers family made it clear that my old friends weren't quite their caliber. They're embezzlers, I said, collapsing onto her couch. Orlando and Shane have been stealing from the foundation for 2 years. Holy shit. Penny sat down next to me. What are you going to do? I'm going to let them think they're getting away with it, right up until the moment I pull the rug out from under them. At the gala? At the gala. Penny was quiet for a moment. Fran, are you sure about this? I mean, I hate Orlando as much as the next person, but this is nuclear. There's no coming back from something like this. Good, I said. I don't want to come back. I want out, and I want them to pay for every snide comment, every dismissive look, every time they made me feel like I was nothing. What about the donation, the one they're expecting? I smiled. Oh, that's the best part. The anonymous donor they're counting on to save their asses? That's me. Penny's jaw dropped. You're kidding. $2 million. Enough to cover what they stole and make them look like heroes, except... I pulled out my phone and showed her the donation agreement I'd had my lawyer draft. The donation comes with conditions. Complete anonymity until the donor chooses to reveal themselves, and the donor reserves the right to withdraw the funds at any time before the official transfer. You magnificent, vengeful genius, Penny breathed. You're going to let them announce it, let them bask in the glory, and then I'm going to stand up in front of everyone and tell them exactly who I am and exactly what they've done. My phone rang. Orlando. Where are you? He demanded when I answered. Mother's been looking for you. We need to do a final walkthrough before tonight. On my way, I said sweetly, just picking up my dress from the cleaners. Good. And Francesca, try to stay out of the way tonight. This is important for the family. Don't worry, I said, catching Penny's grin. I'll make sure tonight is unforgettable. The Summers mansion buzzed with activity when I returned. Caterers rushed between the kitchen and ballroom, florists adjusted centerpieces, and Deborah stood in the middle of it all like a general commanding troops. Francesca, she called out the moment she spotted me. Finally. Come here, I need to discuss your role tonight. I walked over, noting how she positioned herself so I had to look up at her on the grand staircase. Now, as you know, tonight is absolutely crucial for the Foundation's reputation, she began, her voice carrying that tone she used when explaining things to children. We'll have board members, major donors, and several journalists in attendance. Sounds important, I said. It is, which is why I need you to understand your place tonight. She descended a few steps, close enough that I could smell her expensive perfume. You'll be seated at table 12 with some of the younger wives. Try to keep the conversation light. Fashion, travel, that sort of thing. Nothing too cerebral. Carmen appeared from the dining room carrying a clipboard. Mother, the photographer wants to know about family photos. Should we do them before or after the donor announcement? Before, definitely. We want to capture the anticipation. Deborah turned back to me. Francesca, dear, you might want to touch up your makeup before the photos. The lighting can be so unforgiving. I'll keep that in mind, I said. Oh, and one more thing. Deborah's smile turned razor sharp. I know you mean well, but please don't try to insert yourself into conversations about the Foundation's work. Some of our guests tonight have been supporting charitable causes since before you were born. They can spot inexperience from a mile away. Carmen giggled. Remember last year when she tried to talk to Senator Morrison about economic policy? Poor man looked so confused. Senator Morrison asked me about my thoughts on cryptocurrency regulation, I said evenly. I was just answering his question. Cryptocurrency, Deborah repeated, like I'd said unicorns. Yes, well, tonight let's stick to topics you're more comfortable with. My phone buzzed with a text from Scott, my cousin and lawyer. Everything's ready on my end. Prenup is ironclad. Assets are protected. You sure about this? I typed back, never been more sure of anything. Who's that? Carmen asked, trying to peek at my phone. Just confirming my hair appointment, I lied smoothly. Orlando walked in from the study, Shane trailing behind him. Both men looked tense. How are we doing, ladies? Orlando asked, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. Wonderfully, Deborah said. I was just explaining to Francesca how important tonight is. Good. Orlando's gaze fixed on me. We can't afford any surprises. What kind of surprises would I possibly have? I asked innocently. Shane laughed, but it sounded forced. Your wife's got a sense of humour, Orlando. Hilarious, Orlando muttered. Francesca, I need you to be extra charming tonight. Smile, nod, let everyone see what a perfect family we are. Perfect, I repeated. Got it. Carmen's phone rang. It's the caterer, she announced, walking away to answer it. I should check on the flowers, Deborah said, following Carmen toward the ballroom. That left me alone with Orlando and Shane. Perfect. So, I said casually, this anonymous donor, that's quite a stroke of luck. Orlando's jaw tightened. What about it? Just seems convenient. The foundation needs money and suddenly someone appears with exactly the right amount. Shane cleared his throat. These things happen. Wealthy people like to support good causes. $2 million, though. That's not exactly pocket change. Some people have deeper pockets than others, Orlando said curtly. Why the sudden interest in foundation finances? Can't a wife be curious about her husband's work? Orlando stepped closer, his voice dropping. Francesca, I need you to listen very carefully. Tonight is not the time for your little games. Whatever you think you know, whatever you think you've figured out, forget it. I don't know what you mean. Don't play dumb. It doesn't suit you. His hand gripped my arm, just tight enough to make his point. This family has been good to you. We've given you a life most women would kill for. Don't forget that. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back up at his face. Of course, how could I forget? He released me, his expression softening into his public smile. Good. Now go get ready. And remember, smile, nod, look pretty. That's all anyone expects from you tonight. After they left, I stood alone in the foyer looking at the red mark Orlando's grip had left on my arm. 6 years of this. 6 years of being treated like an accessory, a pretty decoration for their perfect family portrait. My phone rang. Penny. How's the lion's den? She asked. About what I expected. Deborah wants me to stick to discussing fashion with the other wives, and Orlando just physically reminded me to stay in my lane. He put his hands on you. Nothing dramatic. Just a little intimidation. I rubbed my arm. But it's the last time he'll ever touch me. Fran, I have to go. Hair appointment, then the final preparations. By tomorrow morning, none of this will matter anymore. Are you scared? I looked around the mansion, the marble floors, the crystal chandeliers, the oil paintings of Orlando's ancestors, looking down with disapproval. All of it built on lies and stolen money. No, I said, I'm excited. The ballroom glittered like something out of a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in ivory silk, and the foundation's logo, a stylized tree with golden leaves, decorated everything from the napkins to the massive banner behind the stage. I stood near the bar in my navy blue gown, watching Orlando work the room. He moved from group to group with practiced ease, shaking hands and flashing that $1 million smile that had fooled me once upon a time. Francesca! A woman in emerald green approached me. I recognized her as Mrs. Patterson, wife of one of the foundation's board members. You look absolutely stunning tonight. Thank you, I said, accepting her air kisses. You look lovely too. I'm so excited about tonight's announcement. Orlando's been very mysterious about this anonymous donor. She leaned in conspiratorially. Any hints? I'm as curious as you are, I said truthfully. Across the room, Deborah held court with a cluster of journalists, her voice carrying over the cocktail chatter. Truly humbled by this generous gift, she was saying. It's donors like this who remind us why the Foundation's work is so vital. This $2 million donation will allow us to expand our scholarship program and fund 3 new community centres. The reporters scribbled notes eagerly. One raised her hand. Mrs. Summers, can you tell us anything about the donor's identity? I'm afraid not. They've insisted on complete anonymity, at least for now. But I can tell you there's someone who truly understands the Foundation's mission. Carmen appeared at my elbow, champagne flute in hand. Isn't this exciting? Mother's been planning this moment for weeks. I'm sure she has, I said. You know, Francesca, I have to say you're handling all this attention very well. Usually you get so overwhelmed at these events. Before I could respond, the lights dimmed and Orlando stepped onto the small stage. The crowd quieted, turning their attention toward him. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the annual Summers Foundation Gala. His voice boomed through the sound system. Tonight, we celebrate not just our achievements, but the incredible generosity of our supporters. Applause filled the room. I spotted Shane near the back, nervously adjusting his tie. As many of you know, this year has brought unique challenges, Orlando continued, but it's also brought extraordinary opportunities. Tonight, I'm thrilled to announce that an anonymous donor has made a commitment that will transform our foundation's ability to serve the community. More applause. Deborah beamed from her front row table. $2 million, Orlando announced, and the room erupted. $2 million that will fund scholarships, community programs, and initiatives we've only dreamed of until now. I watched the faces around me, the genuine excitement, the impressed nods, the way people looked at Orlando with newfound respect. They had no idea they were applauding stolen money being used to cover up more stolen money. Now, I know what you're thinking, Orlando said, his grin widening. Who is this mysterious benefactor? Well, I can't reveal their identity tonight. They've insisted on anonymity. But I can tell you there's someone very close to our hearts. He looked directly at me and winked. Several people followed his gaze, and I felt heat rise in my cheeks. Someone who understands that real change happens when we work together, he continued. Someone who believes in the power of community, of lifting each other up. The crowd was eating it up. Orlando had always been good at this, making people believe in his version of the truth. But you know what? Orlando's voice took on a more casual tone. I have to admit, when I first heard about this donation, I was shocked. I mean, $2 million. That's serious money. The kind of money that requires serious thought, serious planning. A few chuckles rippled through the audience. I actually turned to my beautiful wife here and said, Francesca, honey, can you believe someone would just give away $2 million like that? He gestured toward me, and several people turned to look. And you know what she said? I hadn't said anything. We'd never had that conversation. She said, Orlando, some people just have more money than sense. Orlando laughed, and the crowd laughed with him. Now, I love my wife dearly, but let's be honest, she's not exactly our family's financial mastermind. She's more of a, well, let's just say she's much better at spending money than understanding where it comes from. The laughter was louder now. I felt every eye in the room on me, saw the amused smiles, the knowing looks between couples. But that's okay, Orlando continued, his tone affectionate but condescending. Not everyone can be good with numbers. Some people are just blessed with other talents, like looking absolutely gorgeous in that dress tonight. He blew me a kiss, and the crowd applauded. I smiled and gave a little wave, playing the part of the adoring, slightly dim wife. Anyway, Orlando said, turning back to the audience, whoever our anonymous donor is, they've given us an incredible gift, and I promise you every penny will be used exactly as intended. As he continued his speech, I felt a gentle tap on my shoulder. Leighton stood behind me, looking nervous in his rented tuxedo. Mrs. Summers, he whispered, could I speak with you privately? It's important. I followed him to a quiet corner near the coat check. He pulled a manila folder from inside his jacket. I couldn't wait until after, he said, pressing it into my hands. Shane cornered me an hour ago. He knows I've been asking questions, and he's planning to pin everything on me if this goes south. I opened the folder. Inside were bank statements, email printouts, and what looked like a confession letter in Leighton's handwriting. This is everything, he said. Every transaction, every forged signature, every lie they told the board. Shane's signature is on half of these documents. Leighton. There's more. Orlando's been using Foundation credit cards for personal expenses. Gambling debts, mostly. Shane's been covering for him, but they're both in this up to their necks. The folder felt heavy in my hands. This wasn't just embezzlement anymore. This was systematic fraud. "Thank you," I said quietly. "Mrs. Summers." A young woman with a clipboard approached us. "I'm Celeste, the event coordinator. We're ready for the donor reveal whenever you'd like." I looked at her, then at Leighton, then back at the stage where Orlando was still basking in applause. "Actually," I said, I think it's time." "Wait," I said to Celeste, gripping the folder tighter. "Give me 5 more minutes. I need to make a quick call." She nodded and disappeared back into the crowd. I pulled out my phone and dialed Scott. "It's time," I said when he answered. "You sure? Once we do this, there's no going back." "I'm sure. Are the papers ready?" "Divorce papers are filed and ready to serve. The financial disclosures are prepared, and I've got a contact at the Herald who's standing by for the story." "Perfect. See you tomorrow." I hung up and turned to Leighton. "Are you ready for this to get messy?" "I've been ready for 2 years," he said. "Just promise me Orlando and Shane won't be able to retaliate. After tonight, they'll have bigger problems than you." Orlando was wrapping up his speech when I returned to the ballroom. "And so, let's raise our glasses to the future of the Summers Foundation." The crowd lifted their champagne flutes. I grabbed one from a passing waiter and joined the toast, smiling as everyone drank to their own destruction. "Now," Orlando continued, "I believe our event coordinator has something special planned for us." Celeste took the microphone, her voice bright and professional. "Thank you, Orlando. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a wonderful surprise tonight. Our anonymous donor has agreed to reveal themselves to you." Excited murmurs rippled through the crowd. Deborah sat up straighter, her eyes scanning the room like she was trying to guess who it might be. "This generous individual has asked to say a few words about why they chose to support the Summers Foundation," Celeste continued. "So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming..." She paused, looking at the card in her hand with confusion. "I'm sorry, there seems to be some mistake. The card just says Mrs. Francesca Summers." The room went dead silent. I could feel hundreds of eyes turning toward me, could see Orlando's face drain of colour on the stage. "That's not a mistake," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "That's exactly right." I walked toward the stage, my heels clicking against the marble floor. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, whispers following in my wake. "Francesca?" Orlando's voice cracked slightly. "What are you doing?" I climbed the steps to the stage and took the microphone from Celeste's trembling hands. The ballroom was so quiet I could hear the ice clinking in people's glasses. "Good evening," I said, my voice steady and clear. "For those who don't know me, I'm Francesca Summers, Orlando's wife, the one who's better at spending money than understanding where it comes from." A few nervous chuckles, but mostly stunned silence. "I'm also your anonymous donor, the person who pledged $2 million to save this foundation." Gasps echoed through the room. I saw Deborah's mouth fall open, saw Carmen grab her mother's arm. "Now, I know what you're thinking. How could someone like me, someone who Orlando just told you has more money than sense, possibly have $2 million to donate?" Orlando stepped toward me, his face pale. "Francesca, what are you—" "Please don't interrupt, darling. I'm just getting started." I turned back to the audience. "You see, while my husband and his family have spent the last 6 years treating me like an expensive decoration, I've been building something. A little fintech company that you've probably never heard of. Nothing too impressive, just a few patents, some government contracts, the usual boring tech stuff." I could see people pulling out their phones, probably Googling my name. "The company's worth about $50 million now. Not bad for someone who's not exactly the family's financial mastermind, right?" Orlando's face had gone from pale to red. "Francesca, stop this right now." Oh, but we're just getting to the good part. I held up Leighton's folder. You see, when I decided to make this generous donation, I wanted to make sure the foundation was financially sound. So I did a little digging. Shane was pushing through the crowd toward the stage, but security stepped in his way. And what I found was fascinating. Did you know that over the past 2 years, nearly $3 million has gone missing from the foundation's accounts? The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Board members were standing up, looking confused and angry. $3 million, I repeated, funneled through shell companies, fake invoices and unauthorized transfers, all signed off on by the foundation's president and his business partner. You're lying, Orlando hissed, but his voice wasn't carrying through the sound system. Am I? I opened the folder and pulled out a bank statement. This shows a transfer of $200,000 from the foundation to something called Beacon Consulting. Guess who owns Beacon Consulting? I looked directly at Shane, who was now trying to push past security. And this, I held up another document, shows foundation credit cards being used at the Mohegan Sun Casino, repeatedly, for amounts totaling over $500,000. Deborah had gone completely white. Carmen was frantically whispering to someone on her phone. So here's the thing, I continued, my voice growing stronger. I pledged $2 million to save this foundation, but I can't, in good conscience, donate money to an organization that's been systematically defrauded by its own leadership. Francesca, please... Orlando reached for the microphone, but I stepped back, which is why I'm officially withdrawing my donation, effective immediately. The room exploded. People were shouting, reporters were taking pictures, and board members were demanding answers. But I wasn't done yet. Oh, and one more thing, I said, waiting for the noise to die down. Orlando, I'm divorcing you. The papers will be served tomorrow morning. Orlando lunged for me, but I was already walking off the stage, leaving him standing there in front of 300 people, his perfect facade crumbling in real time. As I reached the ballroom floor, Celeste caught up with me, her face flushed with excitement and terror. Mrs. Summers, she whispered urgently, there are news crews outside. They want a statement. I smiled, clutching Leighton's folder to my chest. Tell them I'll be right there. The ballroom had descended into complete chaos. Guests clustered in tight groups, their voices rising as they tried to process what they'd just witnessed. Board members surrounded Orlando on the stage, their faces red with anger and confusion. This is insane! Deborah's voice cut through the noise as she pushed toward the stage. Francesca has lost her mind. Someone needs to stop her. But I was already walking toward the exit, Leighton's folder tucked under my arm like a shield. Behind me, I could hear Orlando shouting, She's lying! This is all fabricated! She's having some kind of breakdown! Senator Morrison, one of the foundation's biggest supporters, stepped into Orlando's path. Then you won't mind if we call an emergency board meeting to review these allegations? Of course not, Orlando said, but his voice cracked. But this is hardly the time or place. Actually, said Mrs. Patterson, her emerald dress catching the light as she climbed onto the stage, I think this is exactly the time and place. Margaret, call the other board members. We're convening right now. Shane had finally broken free from security and was making his way toward the back exit. I caught his eye across the room and smiled. He froze like a deer in headlights. Shane, I called out sweetly, leaving so soon? Don't you want to stick around for the board meeting? Every head in the room turned toward him. He stood there for a moment, sweat beading on his forehead, then bolted for the door. Stop him! Senator Morrison shouted, but Shane was already gone. Carmen appeared at my elbow, her face flushed with panic. Francesca, please, you have to tell them this is all a misunderstanding. The family what, Carmen? The family that spent 6 years treating me like hired help? The family that just watched Orlando humiliate me in front of 300 people? But the foundation helps so many people. The foundation is broke, Carmen. It's been running on stolen money for 2 years. Those scholarships, those community centres, They're all funded by embezzled donations. Carmen's face crumpled. But Mother said... Your mother knew. I pulled out one of Leighton's documents. This email is from Deborah to Orlando, asking him to handle the audit situation quietly. She's been covering for him. Carmen stared at the paper, her hands shaking. Oh, God, what are we going to do? We, I laughed. Carmen, there is no we. There never was. You made that clear every time you laughed at your brother's jokes about his stupid wife. I walked away from her, heading for the exit. The crowd parted around me, some people staring with fascination, others with disgust. I caught fragments of conversation as I passed. Always knew there was something off about that family. $2 million, can you believe it? Poor girl, married to a criminal. Near the door I spotted Leighton talking urgently to a woman with a press badge. When he saw me, he hurried over. The Herald reporter is here, he said quietly. She wants to interview you. Perfect. What about the police? Already called. They're sending detectives to review the evidence. Behind us, the chaos was reaching a crescendo. Orlando had left the stage and was now surrounded by board members, all talking at once. Deborah stood in the centre of another group, her voice shrill as she tried to control the narrative. This is all a terrible misunderstanding, she was saying. My daughter-in-law is clearly having some sort of episode. The stress of the marriage, you understand? Actually, said a voice from the back of the room, I think she's the sanest person here. Everyone turned. Penny stood in the doorway, still in her jeans and MIT sweatshirt, looking completely out of place among the evening gowns and tuxedos. Penny? I stared at her. What are you doing here? You think I was going to miss this? She grinned and held up her phone. I've been live tweeting the whole thing, and Summer's scandal is already trending. Orlando spotted her, and his face darkened. Security, get that woman out of here. Actually, Penny said, pulling out a press badge, I'm here as a journalist, freelance tech reporter, and I have some very interesting information about Mrs. Summer's company that I think people would love to hear. The crowd pressed closer. Penny cleared her throat dramatically. Francesca's fintech startup. It's not just worth $50 million. It's been acquired by Goldman Sachs for $200 million. The deal closed yesterday. The room went dead silent. I felt every eye in the place turn back to me. $200 million, Penny repeated, which makes Francesca one of the wealthiest self-made women in Boston. Funny how Orlando forgot to mention that when he was calling her financially clueless. Orlando's face had gone grey. That's impossible. Is it? I pulled out my phone and showed him the contract signature page. The acquisition was finalised at 3 p.m. yesterday. I was going to surprise you with the news after the gala. You... Orlando stared at the phone screen. You've been planning this. For months, I confirmed. Every insult, every dismissive comment, every time you made me feel small, I was planning this. Deborah pushed through the crowd, her face twisted with rage. You manipulative little... Careful, Deborah, I said softly. There are reporters here. She stopped short, realizing that cameras were now pointed at her. This isn't over, she hissed. You're right, I said, tucking the folder under my arm. It's just beginning. I walked toward the exit, Penny falling into step beside me. Behind us, the Summers family's perfect world was collapsing in real time, and I could hear every beautiful second of it. So, Penny said as we reached the door, how does it feel to be free? I looked back one last time at the chaos I'd created, at Orlando standing alone on the stage while his empire crumbled around him. Ask me tomorrow, I said. When the real fun begins. The mansion's front steps were packed with news crews. Camera lights blazed in the darkness, and reporters shouted questions as soon as they spotted me. Mrs. Summers, can you comment on the allegations? Is it true you're worth $200 million? What's your response to your husband's claims that you're having a breakdown? I stopped at the top of the steps, Penny beside me, and looked out at the sea of cameras. Behind me, I could hear the ballroom doors opening as guests spilled out onto the front lawn. "I'll make one statement," I said, and the crowd quieted. "For 6 years, I've been told I'm not smart enough, not sophisticated enough, not worthy enough to be part of this family. Tonight, I proved them wrong." "What about the embezzlement allegations?" a reporter called out. "The evidence speaks for itself. I've turned everything over to the authorities." "Mrs. Summers," another voice, "are you really divorcing your husband?" "The papers were filed this afternoon. My marriage is over." Behind me, Orlando burst through the doors. Deborah and Carmen closed behind. His tuxedo was rumpled, his hair dishevelled. "Francesca!" he shouted. "Get back here! We need to talk!" I turned to face him, the cameras swivelling to capture the confrontation. "We have nothing to talk about, Orlando. You can't just destroy everything we've built. We didn't build anything. You stole it." Orlando started down the steps toward me, but 2 men in suits stepped into his path. "Mr. Summers, Detective Rodriguez, Boston PD, we'd like to ask you some questions." Orlando's face went white. I need to call my lawyer." "That's your right," the detective said, "but we're going to need you to come with us." "This is ridiculous," Deborah shrieked from the doorway. "My son is innocent. This is all her doing." She pointed at me with a shaking finger. "Mum," the second detective said, "we'd like to speak with you as well." The crowd of reporters pressed closer, cameras flashing. I could see guests from the gala gathering on the lawn, their faces a mix of shock and fascination. "Wait!" Carmen pushed past her mother, stumbling down the steps in her heels. "Wait, please!" Everyone turned to look at her. She stood there in her silver gown, tears streaming down her face. "I can't do this anymore," she said, her voice breaking. "I can't keep lying." "Carmen, shut up!" Orlando hissed, but the detectives were already moving toward her. "Ma'am, what do you mean by lying?" Detective Rodriguez asked gently. Carmen looked at her mother, then at Orlando, then back at the detective. "The foundation money, I knew about it. I helped them hide it." Deborah let out a strangled cry. "Carmen, no!" "I'm sorry, Mother, but I'm not going to prison for this." Carmen turned to the cameras. "Shane came to me 6 months ago. He said they needed help moving money around, making the books look clean. He said it was just temporary, that they'd pay it all back." "You stupid girl!" Deborah screamed. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "What I've done?" Carmen laughed hysterically. "What about what you've done? You knew Orlando was gambling away foundation money. You knew Shane was stealing from the accounts, and you made me help cover it up." The reporters were going crazy, shouting questions and taking pictures. I could see phones everywhere, people live streaming the meltdown. "Mrs. Summers," Detective Rodriguez said to Deborah, "you're under arrest for the conspiracy to commit fraud." "This is insane," Deborah shrieked as they handcuffed her. "I'm a pillar of this community. I've donated millions to charity." "With other people's money," I said quietly. Orlando tried to run. He actually tried to run, pushing through the crowd of reporters and guests. But there were too many people, too many cameras. He made it maybe 20 feet before the detectives caught up with him. "Orlando Summers, you're under arrest for embezzlement and fraud," Detective Rodriguez announced as they cuffed him. The crowd erupted, cameras flashed, reporters shouted, and guests from the gala stood on the lawn in their evening wear, watching the Summers family dynasty collapse in real time. "Francesca!" Orlando shouted as they led him toward the police car. "This isn't over. You think you've won, but you have no idea what you've started." I walked down the steps until I was face to face with him. "I know exactly what I've started. Justice." "Justice?" He laughed bitterly. "You destroyed a family. You destroyed a foundation that helped thousands of people." "No," I said. "You did that. I just made sure everyone found out about it." As the police cars pulled away, the crowd began to disperse. Reporters rushed off to file their stories, guests called Ubers to escape the chaos, and the mansion stood empty behind us. Penny put her arm around my shoulders. "So," she said, "how does it feel now?" I looked at the mansion where I'd spent 6 years being made to feel small. The windows were dark now, the party over, the family scattered. Like I can finally breathe, I said. But even as I said it, I knew this was just the beginning. The real consequences were still coming. The coffee shop on Newbury Street looked exactly the same as it had 3 weeks ago when I'd met Leighton to plan Orlando's downfall. But everything else had changed. I sat in the same corner booth, scrolling through news articles on my phone. The headlines were brutal. Summers Foundation scandal deepens. Socialite family's criminal empire exposed. Tech heiress brings down Boston dynasty. Mind if I sit? I looked up to see Leighton standing there with 2 cups of coffee. He looked better than he had in months. The dark circles under his eyes were gone, and he was actually smiling. "Please," I said, gesturing to the seat across from me. He sat down and slid one of the cups toward me. "Thought you might need the caffeine. I saw the interview you did with Channel 5 this morning." "How'd I look?" "Like someone who's finally sleeping at night." I laughed. "That's because I am. For the first time in 6 years. Any word on the sentencing?" "Orlando got 8 years. Shane got 6. Deborah got 3 years in community service." I took a sip of coffee. "Carmen got probation and a hefty fine for cooperating." "Good. She was the only one who showed any remorse." My phone buzzed with a text from Scott. "Divorce finalised. You're officially free." I showed Leighton the message. "It's done. I'm no longer a Summers." "How does it feel?" "Weird. Good weird, but still weird." I set my phone down. "What about you? Any word on the new job?" Leighton's smile widened. "I start Monday. The State Attorney General's office wants me to head up their financial crimes unit. Apparently, exposing a multi-million-dollar embezzlement scheme looks good on a resume. Congratulations, you deserve it." "We both do." He raised his coffee cup. "To justice." "To justice," I agreed, clinking my cup against his. The bell above the door chimed and Penny walked in, her arms full of newspapers. She spotted us and hurried over. "You're not going to believe this," she said, dropping into the booth beside me. She spread the papers across the table. "Look at these headlines. The Boston Globe. Summers Foundation victims to receive full restitution. The Herald. Anonymous donor establishes new scholarship fund. The Wall Street Journal. Tech entrepreneurs' revenge sparks charity reform movement." "Anonymous donor?" I asked, raising an eyebrow at Penny. "Hey, you said you wanted to do something good with the money from the acquisition. I just helped you figure out how." I picked up the Globe article and read aloud. "The newly established Phoenix Foundation will provide scholarships and community support to victims of financial fraud. The foundation's anonymous benefactor has pledged $50 million over the next 5 years. Phoenix," Leighton said, "rising from the ashes. I like it." "The best part," Penny said, grinning, "is that 3 of the Summers Foundation's former board members have already asked to join the Phoenix board. They want to help rebuild what Orlando destroyed." My phone rang. I glanced at the screen and saw Carmen's name. "Should I answer it?" I asked. "Your call," Penny said. I swiped to accept. "Hello, Carmen." "Francesca." Her voice was small, shaky. I wanted to thank you." "Thank me?" "For not destroying me completely. You could have. You had enough evidence to send me to prison for years." I was quiet for a moment. "You were the only one who told the truth when it mattered." "I was a coward for 6 years. I let them treat you terribly, and I participated in it. I'm sorry." "I know you are. The house is going up for sale next week. The lawyers say we need to liquidate everything to pay restitution to the foundation's victims." "Good. Those people deserve their money back." Carmen was quiet for a long moment. "What you did? It was brilliant, terrifying, but brilliant. It was necessary." "I know. And Francesca, I'm glad you're free." After I hung up, Penny leaned back in the booth. So, what now? You've got more money than you know what to do with. You're free from the worst family in Boston, and you're basically a folk hero to every woman who's ever been underestimated. Now I figure out who I want to be, I said. For 6 years, I was Orlando's wife, the Summers family disappointment. Before that, I was the quiet girl who built companies in her spare time. But I've never just been me. And who is that? Leighton asked. I looked around the coffee shop at the normal people living their normal lives, unburdened by the weight of other people's expectations. I guess I'm about to find out. Penny grinned. Well, whoever you decide to be, I hope she's half as badass as the woman who took down the Summers family. Oh, I said, standing up and gathering the newspapers. I think she's going to be even better. As we walked out of the coffee shop together, I caught my reflection in the window. The woman looking back at me was someone I barely recognised, confident, free, unafraid. She looked like someone who could do anything. And for the first time in my life, I believed it.
The moment I heard the engine purring in our driveway, I knew my life was about to change forever. Not in the way I'd been dreaming about for the past 3 years, finally buying our own home, starting a family, building something real together. No. This was different. This was the sound of betrayal wrapped in German engineering. My name is Sloane, and I've spent the last 5 years being the invisible partner in what I thought was our shared dream. While my husband Carter climbed the corporate ladder, I balanced our books, clipped coupons, and turned our tiny rental into something that felt like home. Every dollar saved, every sacrifice made, I told myself it was all leading somewhere beautiful. Sloane, come see what I got, Mum. Carter's voice boomed through our paper-thin walls, and I could hear the excitement crackling in every syllable. I set down the stack of bills I'd been organising, utilities, groceries, the usual dance of making ends meet, and walked to the front window. There it was, a gleaming red BMW convertible sitting in our driveway like a middle finger pointed directly at my face. Isn't she gorgeous? Carter was practically bouncing as I stepped outside, his arm already wrapped around his mother Denise's shoulders. She stood there in her designer outfit, running her manicured fingers along the car's hood like she was petting a prize stallion. Carter, I said slowly, my voice surprisingly steady. What is this? It's Mum's new car. I told you she's been having trouble with that old Honda. This baby's got all the safety features, heated seats, the works. Denise smiled at me, that particular smile she reserved for moments when she wanted to remind me exactly where I ranked in her son's priorities. Carter's always been so thoughtful. He knows how to take care of the women in his life. The women, plural, as if I was just another item on his to-do list. How much? The words came out sharper than I intended. Carter's expression shifted, just slightly. Don't worry about it, I handled everything. That's not what I asked. Sloane? His voice carried that warning tone, the one that meant I was embarrassing him in front of his mother. Can we discuss this inside? But I was already walking toward the car, my bare feet slapping against the cold concrete. The price sticker was still tucked in the corner of the windshield. My eyes found the number, and for a moment the world tilted sideways. $47,000. Carter? My voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. Please tell me you didn't... I used our savings. He said it like he was announcing the weather. Mum needed reliable transportation, and we can always save up again. Our savings? 3 years of my life. 3 years of buying generic cereal and mending clothes instead of replacing them. 3 years of saying no to dinners out, to vacations, to the small luxuries that make life bearable. Gone. You spent our entire down payment on a car. It's not just a car, it's Mum's safety. Our house, Carter, our future. Denise stepped closer, her voice honey-sweet and poisonous. Oh, sweetie, surely you understand. A mother's needs come first. Besides, it's not like you're contributing financially anyway. The words hit me like a physical blow, but it was Carter's reaction that broke something inside me. He didn't defend me. He didn't correct her. He just stood there, nodding slightly, like she'd made a perfectly reasonable point. She's right, Sloane. You don't work. You don't understand the pressure I'm under to provide for this family. Mum raised me, sacrificed everything for me. The least I can do is make sure she's comfortable. And what about your wife? He shrugged. You're just a housewife? This is what housewives do. They support their husband's decisions. Just a housewife. I felt something crack inside my chest, like ice breaking on a frozen lake. All those years of believing we were partners, believing my contributions mattered, believing that love meant building something together. It all shattered in that moment. You're right, I said quietly. I am just a housewife. Carter smiled, thinking he'd won. Denise looked satisfied, like she'd successfully put me in my place. They had no idea what they'd just unleashed. Because housewives, as they were about to learn, know exactly where all the bodies are buried. The next morning I made pancakes, from scratch, with real maple syrup and fresh berries I definitely couldn't afford anymore. Oh, how lovely, Denise practically purred as she settled into what used to be my favourite chair at our kitchen table. Carter, your wife is finally learning how to properly welcome guests. Carter beamed at her like she'd just crowned him king. Mum's staying for a few days to get used to the new car. You don't mind, right, Sloane? I smiled and set a perfect stack in front of her. Of course not. Family first. The words tasted like ash, but my voice stayed steady. I'd practiced in the mirror while they were both still sleeping. You know, Denise continued, cutting her pancakes into precise little squares. I was just telling Carter how important it is for a woman to maintain herself, take pride in her appearance. She gestured vaguely at my yoga pants and oversized sweater. A man works hard all day. He deserves to come home to something feminine. Carter nodded along like she was reciting scripture. Mum always looked amazing for Dad, even just around the house. Your father appreciated effort, Denise said, conveniently forgetting that Carter's father had left her 2 years ago. Real women understand that marriage requires sacrifice. Real women, there it was again. Speaking of sacrifice, I said, refilling her coffee cup. I was looking at our bank statements last night, just trying to understand our new budget. Carter's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Sloane, it's fascinating, really. All those transfers over the past month. Small amounts at first, then bigger ones. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through screenshots I'd taken. Looks like you've been planning this for a while. Planning what? Denise asked, but her eyes had sharpened. The car purchase. Carter's been moving money around for weeks, very methodical. I showed them the screen. See, 2,000 here, 5,000 there. Almost like he was trying to make sure I wouldn't notice until it was too late. The kitchen went dead silent except for the coffee maker gurgling. That's just good financial planning, Carter said finally. I didn't want to worry you with the details. How thoughtful. I sat down across from them, my own plate untouched. Though I have to admit I'm curious about this email thread I found. Carter went pale. What email thread? I pulled up another screenshot. The one between you and your mum, going back 6 months. Should I read some highlights, or would you prefer to explain why your mother was advising you to secure your mother's future before that girl gets any ideas about joint accounts? Denise's coffee cup clattered against her saucer. Carter, you said you deleted those. You said you deleted what exactly? My voice stayed conversational, but something dangerous was creeping into it. It's not what it sounds like, Carter stammered. Really? Because it sounds like you and your mother have been planning to spend my money behind my back for half a year. I scrolled down. Oh, here's a good one. Make sure you get the car in my name only. If things go south with S, at least I'll have something to show for all these years of watching you waste your potential. Sloane, stop! Carter's voice had gone sharp. Or this gem. She's gotten too comfortable. Remind her what real wives do for their husbands. I looked up at Denise. Funny thing about Gmail, it saves everything. Denise straightened in her chair, all pretense of sweetness gone. A mother has every right to protect her son's interests. From his wife? From a woman who contributes nothing and expects everything. The words hung in the air like smoke. Carter didn't contradict her. Again. My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend Michelle. "Coffee later. You sounded weird yesterday." I typed back quickly. "Can't. Family bonding time. Call you tonight." "Everything okay?" came her immediate response. I looked up at Carter and Denise, both watching me with varying degrees of suspicion and annoyance. "Perfect," I typed, just learning so much about my husband's family values. "Who are you texting?" Carter demanded. "Michelle. She's worried about me." I stood up, collecting plates. Apparently I've seemed off lately. Imagine that. "You don't need to involve your friends in our private business," Denise said. "You're absolutely right." I smiled at her. Family matters should stay in the family. I walked to the sink, my back to them, and started washing dishes. Behind me, I could hear them whispering, probably planning their next move. They had no idea I was already 10 steps ahead. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Carter's sister, Savannah. "Mum's bragging about her new car on Facebook. Dad's furious. Call me." I deleted the message and kept scrubbing. Let the games begin. By day 3, Denise had rearranged my entire kitchen. "The spices should be alphabetical," she announced, holding up my paprika like evidence in a murder trial. "How do you find anything in this chaos?" I stood in the doorway, watching her reorganize the cabinets I'd organized perfectly fine for 5 years. "I manage. Barely." She moved my coffee mugs to a shelf I couldn't reach without a step stool. "Carter, doesn't this bother you, living in such disorder?" Carter looked up from his laptop, where he'd been ignoring both of us for the past hour. "Whatever makes you comfortable, Mum." "What about what makes your wife comfortable?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. Denise turned, eyebrows raised. "Excuse me?" "Nothing. I'll just adapt. That's the spirit." She patted my arm like I was a well-behaved dog. "Flexibility is so important in a marriage." My phone was recording in my pocket. I'd started doing it yesterday, after finding a voice memo app that could run in the background. Amazing what you can learn on YouTube at 3 in the morning. "Sloane, we need to talk about dinner," Denise continued. "I've invited the Hendersons over tomorrow night. They're dying to see Carter's success." "The Hendersons?" "Our old neighbours, very influential people. Carter's father used to work with Jim Henderson before—" She waved her hand dismissively. "Well, before he lost his mind and abandoned his family." Carter's jaw tightened. He hated when she brought up his dad. "I'll need you to make that roast recipe I gave you," Denise said. "The one with the wine reduction. And please, try to do something with your hair. First impressions matter." "Of course," I smiled. "I'll make sure everything's perfect." "Good girl." The condescension in her voice made my teeth ache, but I kept smiling. The recording was crystal clear. That evening, after Denise finally went to bed in our guest room, I called Michelle. "Jesus, Sloane, you sound like you're about to snap." "I'm fine. Bullshit. What's really going on? And don't give me that family bonding crap." I walked out to our tiny back patio, making sure I was far enough from the house. Carter spent our entire savings on a car for his mother. Silence. Then, he what? $47,000. Gone. And now she's living here, rearranging my kitchen and telling me how to be a real woman. "Sloane, that's financial abuse. You know that, right?" "It's complicated." "No, it's not. He stole from you, from your future together. Technically, it was his money too." "Stop." Michelle's voice cut through my excuses. "Just stop. You've been supporting his dreams for years. You've sacrificed everything, and now he's literally giving your security away to Mommy Dearest?" I stared up at the stars, remembering something my grandmother used to say. She'd survived the Depression, raised 6 kids alone after my grandfather died young. "Sometimes," she told me once, "you have to be your own cavalry." "I need a lawyer," I said quietly. "Finally, I know someone, Wren Mackenzie. She's a shark, but she's fair. Want me to set up a meeting? Yes. Sloane, whatever you're planning, be careful. People like Carter and his mother, they don't go down easy. After I hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time. Through the window, I could see Carter at his computer, probably playing games or scrolling social media, living his life like nothing had changed. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "This is Savannah. Got your number from Michelle. We need to talk. Meet me at Brewster's Coffee tomorrow at 2. Come alone." Carter's sister. I'd only met her a handful of times at family gatherings. She was younger, quieter, always seemed uncomfortable around Denise. I texted back, "How do I know this is really you?" Because I'm the only one in this family who thinks what Carter did was fucked up. Dad's been calling me non-stop since he heard about the car. He wants to help you. Carter's estranged father. The man Denise had spent years painting as a villain who'd abandoned his responsibilities. 2 p.m, I typed. I'll be there. The next morning, I made Denise's precious roast. Followed her recipe exactly, even though it called for a $100 bottle of wine that I had to put on our already maxed-out credit card. "Smells wonderful," she said, inspecting my work like a drill sergeant. "Though next time try to get the sear a bit more even." "I'll remember that." "Oh, and Sloane, I laid out a dress for you on your bed, something more appropriate for tonight. I went to look. It was one of her old dresses, at least 2 sizes too big and completely wrong for my colouring." "Thank you," I called back. "It's perfect." But I had no intention of wearing it. Tonight, the Hendersons were going to meet the real me, and tomorrow I was going to start building my case. Savannah looked nothing like Carter. Where he was tall and broad, she was petite with sharp features and eyes that missed nothing. She was already seated when I arrived at Brewster's, nursing a coffee and checking her phone. "You came," she said, looking up as I approached. "Your text was intriguing." She gestured to the chair across from her. "Sit. We don't have much time before Carter starts wondering where you are." I sat down, studying her face. "You said your dad wants to help me." "Dad's been trying to warn people about Mom for years. Nobody listens because she's so good at playing the victim." Savannah pulled out her phone. "But Carter's car stunt, that was the last straw." "What do you mean?" She did the same thing to Dad, convinced him to liquidate his retirement account for some investment opportunity that turned out to be a shopping spree for her friends. Savannah scrolled through her messages. "He's got documentation, bank records, emails, the whole thing." My heart started racing. Why didn't he use it in the divorce? Because he loved Carter and didn't want to destroy his relationship with his son. But now, she showed me her screen, he's done protecting her. The message thread was between Savannah and someone labelled Dad. Dad, that boy needs to learn what his mother really is before she ruins his life too. Savannah, Sloane seems like a good person. She doesn't deserve this. Dad, then help her. I've got everything she needs to bury Denise legally. There's more, Savannah said, switching to another app. The family group chat, the one they think I don't pay attention to. She handed me the phone. The chat was called Team Carter and included Carter, Denise and Carter's Uncle Rick. Denise, Phase 1 complete. Car is mine. Savings are gone. Now we work on separating him from the dead weight. Rick, you sure about this? Kid seems happy enough. Denise, happy is temporary. Security is forever. Once she's gone, Carter can find someone who actually contributes. Carter, Mum's right. Sloane's gotten too comfortable. Time to remind her what marriage really means. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. They planned this, all of it. Gets worse. Savannah scrolled down. Look at yesterday. Denise, found some interesting documents in her desk. Looks like little Sloane has been keeping track of finances more carefully than we thought. Carter, what kind of documents? Denise, bank statements, receipts, some kind of budget spreadsheet. Girl's been documenting everything. Rick, that's not good. Denise, relax. I took pictures and deleted the originals. She'll never prove anything now. My blood turned to ice. She stole my records? Every single one. But here's the thing. Savannah grinned. Mum's not as tech-savvy as she thinks. Everything backs up to the cloud automatically these days. You mean? I mean you've got copies of everything she destroyed, plus screenshots of her admitting to destroying evidence. Savannah leaned forward. Dad's lawyer says that's called spoliation. It's a felony. I sat back in my chair, mind racing. Why are you helping me? Because I'm tired of watching her destroy people. She did it to Dad. Now she's doing it to you. And honestly, Savannah's voice got quiet. I think she's going to do it to Carter too eventually. He's just too blind to see it. What do you need from me? Access to your house, tonight, while they're at that dinner party. She pulled out a flash drive. I need to copy some files from Carter's computer, financial records, email accounts, anything that proves premeditation. That's breaking and entering. No, it's not. You live there. You're inviting me over. She smiled grimly. Besides, they already broke the law when they stole your documents. My phone buzzed. Carter. Where are you? Mum's asking about dinner prep. I have to go, I said, standing up. Sloane? Savannah grabbed my wrist. There's something else. Mum's been telling Carter he should remortgage the house. Says you'll never know if he handles the paperwork himself. The world tilted. Our house? She wants him to take out a second mortgage and put the money in an account with just his name on it. Emergency fund, she calls it. When? Tomorrow. She's already picked out the bank. I walked back to my car on unsteady legs, Savannah's flash drive burning a hole in my pocket. Carter and Denise weren't just stealing my past, they were stealing my future too. But tonight, while they played happy family with the Hendersons, I was going to start stealing it back. My phone rang. Michelle. How'd it go with the lawyer? I haven't met with her yet, but I will. I started the engine. Michelle, if something happens to me, nothing's going to happen to you. If it does, there's a flash drive in my jewellery box. Make sure it gets to the police. Sloane, you're scaring me. Good, I'm finally scaring myself too. The Hendersons arrived at exactly 7, dressed like they were attending a country club gala instead of dinner at our modest rental house. Jim, Patricia, Denise swept toward them in a flowing dress that probably cost more than our monthly rent. You both look absolutely radiant. I stood in the kitchen doorway wearing my own clothes, a simple black dress that actually fit me, and watched the performance begin. Denise, you haven't aged a day, Patricia gushed, air-kissing both cheeks. And Carter, my goodness, you've become quite the success story. Carter preened under the attention. Just trying to take care of the important people in my life. Speaking of which, Jim said, we heard about your generous gift to your mother. That's the kind of son every parent dreams of. Well, Carter said, shooting me a pointed look, some people understand family loyalty better than others. I smiled and excused myself to check on dinner, but I could hear every word from the kitchen. Your wife seems quiet, Patricia observed. Sloane's still adjusting to having a real woman in the house, Denise said. I'm trying to teach her proper hospitality, but you know how it is with girls these days. No one teaches them the fundamentals anymore. It's a shame, Jim agreed. Patricia was raised right, knew how to support a man's ambitions from day one. Exactly, Denise's voice rose with excitement. Carter deserves someone who elevates him, not someone who holds him back with petty concerns about money. My hands stilled on the serving platter. The recording app was running, capturing every poisonous word. Is that why you moved in? Patricia asked. To help guide her? Someone has to. The poor thing has no idea how to run a proper household. Did you know she keeps the spices in complete disorder? Alphabetical organisation is basic homemaking. I carried the roast into the dining room, setting it down with perhaps a bit more force than necessary. This looks wonderful, Sloane, Jim said politely. Thank you. It's Denise's recipe. She's been very educational about proper cooking techniques. I do what I can, Denise said with false modesty. Though I have to say, it's challenging when someone's so set in their ways. Carter raised his wineglass. To Mum, for always knowing what's best for our family. They all drank. I pretended to sip mine. "So, Carter," Jim said, cutting into his meat, "what's next for you? Any big plans?" "Actually, yes. I'm looking into some investment opportunities, real estate, maybe some stocks, building a more secure foundation." Smart man," Jim nodded, "though I hope you're being careful about joint accounts and such. You hear horror stories about divorces these days." Denise practically glowed. "Oh, Carter's very wise about financial planning, aren't you, sweetheart?" "I'm learning to think more strategically," Carter said. "Sometimes you have to make decisions that not everyone understands at first." "Like the car?" Patricia asked. "Exactly. Sloane was upset initially, but she's coming around to seeing the bigger picture." I set down my fork carefully. "What bigger picture is that?" The table went quiet. Carter's eyes narrowed slightly. "The importance of family," he said slowly, "of taking care of the people who matter most." "And who decides who matters most?" "Carter does," Denise interjected. "He's the head of this household." "I see." I stood up. "Excuse me, I need to check on dessert." In the kitchen, I leaned against the counter and pulled out my phone. 3 missed calls from Wren Mackenzie, the lawyer Michelle had recommended. I called her back. "Ms. O'Connor, I got your message. We need to meet immediately." "I can't right now. I have guests." "Tomorrow morning, then, 8 a.m. sharp. And bring everything, bank statements, emails, recordings, whatever you've got." "How do you know I have recordings?" "Because you sound like a woman who's done being a victim. Am I right?" Through the doorway, I could hear Denise regaling the Hendersons with stories about Carter's childhood, painting herself as the devoted single mother who sacrificed everything. "You're right," I said quietly. "Good. One more thing. Don't sign anything, don't agree to anything, and don't let them know you've lawyered up. Can you do that?" "Yes. See you at 8. I hung up and returned to the dining room with store-bought cheesecake I'd dressed up with fresh berries. "There she is," Denise announced. "We were just talking about you." "All good things, I hope." "Of course," Patricia said. "Denise was telling us how lucky Carter is to have found someone so accommodating." The word hung in the air like a slap. "I do try to be supportive," I said, sitting back down. "That's what marriage is about," Jim said. "Knowing your role and playing it well." "Absolutely," Carter agreed. "Some people think marriage is 50-50, but really it's about complementary strengths. I handle the big decisions, Sloane handles the day-to-day details." "Like a well-oiled machine," Denise added. I smiled and nodded and played the perfect hostess for another hour, but inside I was counting down the minutes until 8 a.m, because tomorrow the machine was going to break down completely. Wren Mackenzie's office looked like a war room. Legal books lined every wall, and her desk was covered with colour-coded files and yellow legal pads covered in sharp handwriting. "Sit," she said without looking up from the documents I'd brought. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe late 30s, with steel-grey hair pulled back in a severe bun, and reading glasses that made her look like a librarian who could destroy you in court. I sat and watched her work. She'd been silent for 20 minutes, occasionally making notes or pulling out her phone to take pictures of bank statements. "Jesus Christ," she finally said, looking up at me. "How long has this been going on?" "The financial stuff, about 6 months based on what I found." "No, I mean the emotional abuse, the gaslighting, the systematic isolation." She gestured at the recordings I'd transcribed. "This isn't just financial infidelity, Sloane. This is a coordinated campaign to destroy your sense of reality." "I just want my money back." "Honey, you're getting a lot more than your money back." Wren leaned forward. "What they've done here is textbook financial abuse with a side of conspiracy. The deleted documents alone are enough to nail them for spoliation of evidence." Savannah said the same thing. "Smart girl. Is she willing to testify?" "She said she would." "Good, because I'm going to need every ally we can get." Wren pulled out a fresh legal pad. "Here's what we're going to do. First, we file for divorce immediately. No separation, no trial period, straight to dissolution of marriage." My stomach clenched. That seems so final. "It is final, that's the point." Her voice softened slightly. "Sloane, They're planning to steal your house. If we don't move fast, you'll lose everything. How do you know about the house? Because I've seen this pattern before. Narcissistic mother, enabling son, disposable wife. They're following a playbook. She flipped through her notes. The car was phase 1. Establish that he can make major financial decisions without your input. The house is phase 2. Secure assets in his name only. Phase 3 would be filing for divorce themselves and claiming you contributed nothing to the marriage. But I have proof, which they tried to destroy. That tells me they know exactly what they're doing. Wren stood up and walked to her window. The good news is they're not as smart as they think they are. Your documentation is meticulous, the recordings are damning, and their own text messages prove premeditation. What happens next? You go home and act normal. Don't let them know anything's changed. Can you do that? I nodded, though my hands were shaking. Tonight I'm filing an emergency motion to freeze all marital assets. By tomorrow morning, Carter won't be able to access any joint accounts or make any major financial decisions without court approval. He's going to be furious. Let him be furious. Fury makes people stupid, and stupid people make mistakes. Wren sat back down. I'm also going to need you to document everything that happens from now on. Every conversation, every threat, every attempt at manipulation. Can you handle that? Yes. One more thing. Do you have somewhere safe to stay? Family? Friends? Michelle offered her couch. Good, because once we serve these papers, things are going to get ugly fast. Wren handed me a business card. My cell number's on the back. If anything happens, and I mean anything, you call me immediately. I drove home in a daze, Wren's words echoing in my head. By the time I pulled into our driveway, Carter and Denise were loading suitcases into her new BMW. There you are, Carter said as I got out of my car. Where were you? Doctor's appointment, just a routine checkup. The lie came easily now. Well, hurry up and pack. We're going to spend the weekend at Mum's new place. New place? Denise smiled triumphantly. I put a deposit down on a lovely condo across town. Carter's helping me move in. With what money? The car dealer gave me an excellent trade-in value on the Honda, she said smoothly. Plus, Carter's been so generous with the down payment. More of our savings. Gone. That's wonderful, I said. I'll just grab a few things. Inside, I moved quickly. Clothes, toiletries, and most importantly, copies of all my documents hidden in various places throughout the house. I also grabbed the flash drive Savannah had given me and my grandmother's jewellery, the only things in this house that were truly mine. Ready? Carter called from the driveway. Almost, I called back, then quickly texted Michelle. It's happening. Can I come over tonight? Her response was immediate. Door's always open. You okay? I will be. I walked outside with my overnight bag, smiling at Carter and Denise like nothing had changed. This will be fun, I said, like a little vacation. Exactly, Denise said. And who knows, maybe we'll like the arrangement so much we'll make it permanent. Carter laughed. Don't get ahead of yourself, Mum. But I saw the look that passed between them. They'd already decided. Too bad for them, so had I. The process server arrived at Denise's new condo at exactly 9 a.m. on Monday morning. I wasn't there to see it, but Savannah called me immediately afterward. Holy shit, Sloane! Carter's losing his mind. He's been calling me non-stop for the past hour. I was sitting in Michelle's kitchen, nursing my third cup of coffee and trying to keep my hands from shaking. What's he saying? That you've lost your mind, that you're trying to steal everything he's worked for, that his mother is having chest pains from the stress. Chest pains? Fake ones. She does that whenever she doesn't get her way. Dad used to rush her to the ER until he figured out the pattern. My phone started buzzing. Carter's name flashed on the screen. He's calling me, I told Savannah. Don't answer. Let Wren handle everything from now on. But the phone kept ringing. Text after text started flooding in. Carter, what the hell is wrong with you? Carter, call me now. Carter, you can't just destroy our marriage because you're having some kind of breakdown. Carter, Mum is in the hospital because of you. I showed the messages to Michelle, who was reading over my shoulder. Block him, she said. This is harassment. I need to document it first. I screenshot each message, then forwarded them to Ren. Her response was immediate. Perfect. Keep them coming. This is exactly what we need. The doorbell rang. Michelle and I looked at each other. You expecting anyone? She asked. I shook my head. We crept to the window and peered out. A police car was parked in the driveway. Shit, Michelle whispered. What did you do? Nothing illegal. But my heart was pounding as we opened the door. Ma'am, I'm Officer Rodriguez. We received a call about a welfare check. Someone reported that a woman at this address might be in danger. I'm fine, I said quickly. Who called? A man claiming to be your husband said you'd been acting erratically and he was concerned for your safety. Michelle stepped forward. Officer, this woman is going through a divorce. Her husband is trying to intimidate her. Is that true, ma'am? I nodded. I filed papers this morning. My lawyer said this might happen. Officer Rodriguez looked between us, clearly trying to assess the situation. Do you feel safe here? Yes, completely safe. And you're here voluntarily? Yes. He made a note in his pad. Ma'am, I have to ask, are you currently under the influence of any substances, taking any medications that might affect your judgment? No, nothing like that. Okay, well, you seem coherent and unharmed, but I do need to let you know that your husband is quite concerned. He's threatening to file a missing person report. My phone rang again. This time it was Ren. Excuse me, I said to the officer, then answered. Ren? Sloane, where are you? Carter's lawyer just called mine. They're claiming you've abandoned the marital home and are mentally unstable. There's a police officer here right now. Carter called in a welfare check. Put me on speaker. I did. Officer Rodriguez, this is my attorney, Ren Mackenzie. I need you to know that my client is currently involved in divorce proceedings and her husband is attempting to harass her through official channels. Ma'am, I'm just responding to a welfare check call. I understand, but I need it on record that Mrs. Chapman is of sound mind, acting voluntarily, and has legal representation. Any further attempts to use law enforcement to intimidate her should be reported to me immediately. Officer Rodriguez looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, I'll make a note in my report, but if your husband files a missing person report— He can't, Ren interrupted. She's not missing. She's staying with a friend while going through a divorce. That's completely legal. After the officer left, I collapsed onto Michelle's couch. This is insane, I said. He's trying to make me look crazy. Classic abuser tactic, Michelle said. Make the victim look unstable so no one believes them. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Douglas, Carter's father. Savannah gave me your number. I'm driving up from Phoenix. We need to talk. I showed the message to Michelle. Carter's dad? The one who left? The one Denise drove away, I corrected. Savannah says he has evidence about what Denise did to him. When will he be here? Tomorrow, according to this. Michelle sat down next to me. Sloane, are you sure you want to go through with this? It's going to get worse before it gets better. I looked at my phone, still buzzing with angry messages from Carter. Then I thought about the past week. The humiliation, the gaslighting, the systematic destruction of everything I'd worked for. I'm sure, I said, they started this war. I'm going to finish it. But even as I said the words, I wondered if I was strong enough for what was coming. The answer came that evening, when Carter showed up at Michelle's door with 2 police officers and a court order claiming I'd stolen marital property. The real battle was just beginning. The court order was fake. Ren figured it out in 30 seconds, standing on Michelle's front porch while Carter and the 2 officers waited behind her. This isn't a real court document, she announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. The case number doesn't exist, the judge's signature is forged, and the filing date is a Sunday. Courts don't issue orders on Sundays. Officer Rodriguez stepped forward. Ma'am, are you saying this document is fraudulent? I'm saying whoever created this committed a felony. Wren turned to Carter. Did you make this yourself, or did someone help you? Carter's face went white. My mother's friend works in legal. She said what? That you could forge court documents to harass your wife? The second officer was already reaching for his handcuffs. Sir, I need you to turn around and put your hands behind your back. Wait, Carter backed away. This is a misunderstanding. I was just trying to protect my property. By committing document fraud? Officer Rodriguez shook his head. You have the right to remain silent. I watched from Michelle's doorway as they arrested my husband. Part of me felt vindicated. Part of me felt sick. Sloane! Carter shouted as they put him in the patrol car. This is all her fault. She's destroying our family. The neighbours had come out to watch. Mrs. Peterson from next door was recording everything on her phone. Well, Michelle said as the police cars drove away, that escalated quickly. My phone rang. Savannah. Did they really just arrest Carter for forging court documents? How did you? Mom called me screaming. She's on her way over there right now. Here? She's convinced this is all some conspiracy against her precious son. Dad's trying to calm her down, but... Savannah paused. Sloane, she's not stable right now. Maybe you should go somewhere else. Too late. Denise's red BMW screeched into Michelle's driveway, and she burst out like a woman possessed. You! She screamed, pointing at me. You destroyed my son. Ma'am, you need to calm down, Wren said, stepping between us. Don't tell me to calm down. That little bitch has ruined everything. Denise's perfectly styled hair was wild, her makeup smeared. Carter was perfect before he met her. She poisoned him against his own mother. Actually, came a voice from behind her, Carter was never perfect. You just convinced him he was. We all turned. A tall, silver-haired man was walking up the driveway. Douglas, Carter's father. You, Denise hissed. What are you doing here? Supporting the woman my son should have treated better. Douglas looked at me with kind eyes. I'm sorry it took me so long to speak up. This is your fault, Denise whirled on him. You abandoned us. You left me to raise him alone. I left because you made it impossible to stay, just like you're making it impossible for Carter to have a real marriage. He doesn't need a real marriage. He needs someone who understands his worth. He needs someone who sees him as a human being, not a trophy. Douglas pulled out his phone. Sloane, I've been documenting Denise's behaviour for years. Bank records, recordings, emails, everything she did to me, she's doing to you. Douglas, don't you dare! I already gave it all to your lawyer. He looked at Wren. Financial abuse, emotional manipulation, parental alienation. It's all there. Denise's face crumpled. For a moment she looked like what she really was. A terrified woman who'd built her entire identity around controlling her son. He's all I have, she whispered. No, Douglas said gently. He's all you chose to have. You drove everyone else away. Savannah's car pulled up. She got out and walked straight to her mother. Mum, Carter's been released on bail. He's at the house packing. Packing? He's moving back in with you. Says he can't trust anyone else. Denise brightened immediately. See? He knows where he belongs. Mum? Savannah's voice was tired. He's 34 years old. This isn't healthy. It's family loyalty. It's codependency. Savannah looked at me. Sloane, I'm sorry for all of this. It's not your fault, isn't it? I watched it happen and did nothing for years. Wren stepped forward. If we're done with the family therapy session, I need to discuss the settlement terms. What settlement? Denise demanded. The one where Carter returns every penny he stole, plus damages for emotional distress and legal fees. Wren smiled coldly. Or we go to trial and air all of this in public. Your choice. 3 weeks later, I signed the final divorce papers in Wren's office. Carter had agreed to everything. Return of the savings, half the value of the car, and a restraining order keeping both him and Denise away from me. How do you feel? Wren asked as I handed back the pen. Free, I said, and I meant it. My phone buzzed. A text from Michelle. Your new apartment keys are ready. Welcome to your new life. I walked outside into the sunshine, breathing deeply for what felt like the first time in years. Somewhere across town, Carter was probably still trying to figure out how his perfect plan had fallen apart. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I had my own life to build now, and this time I was building it for me.